Skeptic Minds, episode 3. This episode will be going over free will, determinism, as well as kind of the fallout of it, and implications in real life, perhaps politics, policy, and everything else it may affect, or many other things that it may affect.
Yeah, why there is a reason to believe that why it's practical to believe that there is no free will, and why it's not just completely detrimental to one's life, why there are some benefits to it, and why it seems true that there is no free will. And I guess where do you want to start? Just kind of with what exactly free will is, because I guess that's probably good, is to have a definition of free will.
For sure.
Mm-hmm. So I think a common definition I've heard of free will is to be able to go back in time to a point and not change anything about the situation, not a single thing, and to be able to make a different choice.
Including, like, you're going back into the past to make this new decision without foresight. Like, you're not you from the future going back and having the experience of making one choice. It's essentially like thinking of, like, a choice comes in front of you right now. Whatever choice you make, do you really think that you could go either way if you could make this choice twice?
Yeah, could you have made the opposite decision with the exact same the exact same thoughts and like
experiences?
Yeah, everything being the exact same.
Yeah.
And I guess determinism kind of states that you couldn't have made a different decision, that it was essentially determined by everything else that had happened to you up until that point, of which you didn't choose or have free will over, because we're just on like a giant cause and effect chain that you can't escape, where you never really get to choose in the beginning these different factors that are going to predicate your other choices in life. And so if they're all based on a non-choice, then I think therefore it was never a choice.
Mm-hmm. Do we want to get into infinite regression at all?
What exactly is that?
So a lot of especially theists will have issue with the idea that it's a cause and effect chain going back infinitely. They will say that there can't be infinite cause and effect. It's a regression, and that you need a quote unquote first mover, like God or something, to initiate the initial cause.
Pushing over that domino.
Yeah, you need a first mover to push that first domino. Where a lot of like the current cosmological models of the universe suggest that the Big Bang isn't really that first push of the domino, but it's the earliest we can see of the temporal cause and effect world.
So is this that it's still determined, but that there was something that pushed that domino? Is that what this is?
That's the idea of a first mover.
Uh-huh.
And there's not really many cosmological models that I've heard or seen that suggest that there is a first mover. It's just that the further, if we can't really just, the main thing is we can't see past the Big Bang being essentially like the beginning. Like
that makes sense, especially because I've always had that thought of like, how they have like scientifically proven there's different realities, and I've always thought, well, if there's a Big Bang on each reality, isn't every reality
like
the exact same?
The multiverse?
I don't know. I just know, like, with string theory, that they've proven that there's multiple realities through that.
I don't think that's proposing there's multiple realities.
Or multiple universes.
String theory itself isn't even proven yet.
Oh, really?
Yeah. String theory is, I think, I'm fairly certain it's still not a hypothesis, but
a theory.
That's true.
Not a scientific theory, because a scientific theory is like, in colloquial terms, like a fact. Like, there's a theory of gravity, and gravity's a fact of the universe.
Yeah.
there's a lot of
But I think
different theories.
I thought they just like was still considered a theory because there's no such thing as absolute truth, and so therefore it would still be considered a theory. It's just the most likely theory.
So theories tend to be things that are so accurate, or there's been so many different arguments, and they've tried to tear it down in so many different ways that like this idea essentially graduates to theory, to where it is the most accurate model of what's happening in the universe that we currently have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and but things don't get deranked from theory ever,
Yeah, they do.
really?
Yeah.
Because I still hear like,
Or not necessarily deranked, but they kind of evolve. So like the theory of evolution, there's things like very specifically within the theory of evolution that have evolved. Like the theory itself has evolved, so it's not really getting dethroned. But like if you pulled up like the idea of the evolutionary theory from like the 1920s, it would be different than the one from today.
yeah, but I'm more so thinking of just theories in the past that I had about the world that seemed to be evident, and I believe that they would label them theories that they no longer hold true. Would we just no longer call it a theory?
Yeah, it would no longer be a theory.
Okay. Huh.
It's
I
scientifically.
always thought theory was just an idea about, or like, seemingly logically sound. I didn't realize it was.
Yeah, like
Certainty.
colloquially, people use theory in place of hypothesis.
Yeah.
Yeah, it comes before hypothesis.
Yeah, that's what I thought, and I thought that hypothesis was what. Like,
yeah, people will say, I have a theory, when it's like a hunch. But scientifically, theory is like the highest rank of modeling that we have in certain concepts and ideas.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just know in like psychology that you start with a theory, then you put it into a hypothesis, and then you continue with your.
But then it'd still be labeled a theory at the end. So.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I don't know.
Anyway, okay. So then, what about like multi-universes? Because I don't know any evidence on that. I just know a lot of what would it be? Astrologists talk about multi-universes as if it is fact.
I mean, to be honest, I haven't looked too much into that, or
Neither have I.
not in
Same
a while.
here.
So.
Okay, I've just assumed because I'm like, well, they care about it. I don't care about it, but they seem to talk about it as if it's fact. So.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people talk about a lot of different scientific hypotheses as factual.
Yeah.
When it's not disingenuous, but it's a little bit reaching. I feel like when a lot of people speak about these hypotheses as if they're theories.
Without stating that it's a theory.
Yeah, they'll definitely.
Or without stating that it's an uncertain
Yeah,
theory.
that it's not certain.
That makes sense. So we're just gonna discard all that and assume this is it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I would love to get into some more multiverse stuff. I just don't know.
I don't know anything. I was hoping you guys did.
Yeah.
I mean, I've looked into it in the past, but like,
To me,
I'm
it
like
wasn't too
halfway
relevant, so
dumb,
that's why I
so.
didn't really care.
Yeah, it's definitely not fresh in my mind. Like I've looked into
Yeah.
it a little bit, but not enough to have ever really been able to.
to
Talk
have a
about it.
proper understanding enough to articulate exactly
Yeah.
what is going on. But
Yeah. So I think that kind of presents a threshold of like what we'll be talking about on the show, of like if we've like kind of heard something in the past, we're probably not going to be talking very definitively about it.
Until we want to make that a topic of discussion, and then we can do further research.
For sure. Yeah. And I think
Sounds good.
I think that should definitely be a future thing that we should look into, though.
It'd be
String
interesting to
theory
talk
as
about.
well as multiverses.
Yeah.
How we get into that?
How would we?
Oh, how did we?
Get
into
from
this?
free will or determinism and the idea of how it might play into multiverse.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't remember the term you were talking about. Starting that first domino, and then I asked. about-
Cause and effect.
Oh yeah,
first
that
mover.
cause and effect chain.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I derailed us very easily.
I don't think it's too much of a derailment. But
That shows how easily you can, someone who studies that field, if they come across as stating something, it's so easy to just accept it without actually looking into it, especially if you're not,
For sure.
you know, if you're not interested into it. Like, I just assumed that these astrologists did their research and knew that I wasn't going to take them. I mean, that like them not stating that it was a theory, or that it, by just stating it, I took it as a fact.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I did that with philosophy a lot too, depending on who I was reading.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a natural thing to do, especially when they're a persuasive writer.
Yeah.
You like want to just, or they seem very intelligent, and they maybe have
They have that
different
background.
different propositions that you like agree with completely, and so then you're more prone to agree with their other stuff because you really hold them in a certain light.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that's such a natural tendency to just want to assume that what you're reading is fact, and without really critically thinking about it yourself, you know.
It's easy, especially if you get into those, like, when I was younger, I'd get into the atheist and theist debates all the time, and the theist would present something, and I'm like, dude, there's no way he can argue against this. And then the atheist would come in, and I was like, oh, there's no way he can argue against this. And then eventually it was just, I couldn't even follow it anymore because I was too young and didn't know what they were talking about.
Mm-hmm. Well, should we describe a little bit of libertarian free will?
Yeah, I don't know what that is, so you guys will also be describing it to me as well.
Yeah, so a lot of the defenses or descriptions I've heard of libertarian free will is, like, I don't mean to be straw manning, but it literally sounds to me as if some people think that there's like a magic like part of their brain that is outside of the physical universe that can make decisions willy-nilly, and
Like a soul?
Like
it says essentially like a perhaps their soul is making a
Or whatever
decision
they wanna
that
call it.
can remove itself from reality.
and express free will while making a decision completely uninfluenced by these other things.
Who they are is not their body, essentially.
Yeah, or at least their decision-making process, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
That would be ascribed more to like their conscious, or like what you said, your soul, which seems like, which is more of a mystical thing in the sense that it's not proven. Like,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, and
Does that usually come out of like a feeling that they mostly have? Because I know a lot of these philosophical ideas, a lot of people present, well, you know, it's a feeling, or especially like religious,
as well as
is.
religion, I think would encourage the idea that you can express free will.
But wouldn't even in religion, because they always say like God has a plan, wouldn't even religion be determined?
I've actually proposed this to a Reddit page, and that they proposed a reasonable argument, and it was God is all-knowing, and because he's all-knowing, he can reasonably assume, or he can almost know what's going to happen in the future, because he knows everyone so well that he knows what they're going to do in the future, and he knows, maybe I'm not saying this perfectly, but yeah, he knows everyone so well, and he also knows what's going to happen in the world, like the natural disaster. He knows everything. He knows everything.
Yeah.
And so because of that, he can conclude what's going to happen in the future.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
mm-hmm.
But that doesn't indicate lack of free will or determinism, because he's not there. There isn't a plan. It's not like he knows. Like, it's not like he has a set plan or a path for every single person's life, and they have to follow it.
Mm-hmm.
But rather, he just knows everyone so well that he can make assumptions, or like have prophecies, or
Yeah, I think arguing free will with theists that aren't super educated on apologetics is very easy to kind of trap them into the conclusion that if they believe in any sort of deity, that there's no way that there can be free will. Whereas I have heard like fairly educated apologists make, I don't know about reasonable, but much better arguments for how they can believe in a deity and also have free will.
Yeah. And I kind of just I did accept their argument. Like if their God is real, then I feel like that could be true. Because I definitely had that idea. Like there are prophecies in the Bible, and if there are prophecies, then like those are predictions about the future. And how could you possibly know the future unless it's determined?
Yeah. That's what I always thought. Anyways, so exactly what is libertarian again? That is
essentially like a soul or magic or anything outside of the physical universe being able to that's a part of you that can make decisions in the real world that are somehow uninfluenced by the real world, or at least minimally influenced by the real world.
And we just don't think that there's enough proof for that soul to exist.
Yeah.
I think there's no reason to logically conclude that you have the soul, or that there is the soul.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of very difficult philosophical hurdles that you need to make to be able to even get to the point where you can say that there's a soul, and then even if you get to where there is a soul, it's still like a lot of very difficult hurdles to get to a soul meaning free will.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think a lot of people try to work backwards. It seems that they just want to justify free will, and then they work backwards from that rather than trying to figure out what the facts of the matter are.
It definitely seems like everyone who believes in free will, or it's more of they want to believe in free will. It's like an emotional attachment they have to it, and they feel as if giving that up is going to cause a lot of depression or meaninglessness in their lives.
And I feel like some people might also think that it grants freedom for people to act however they want, or like not be responsible for their actions or anything like that. But I don't think you can like make that jump.
No.
Yeah. I do think it is an important thing that I think you were kind of bringing up, that being able to say that you have free will, you can almost take credit for a lot of your actions, because you even if you don't believe in free will, it does feel like the things that you do make you a good person or a bad person, and make you responsible or blameworthy or not blameworthy or praisable for the actions that you take. Whereas some of the people that believe in free will might feel like if you think of the world in a deterministic manner, you can't have any sort of praise or blame or anything for anything anybody does, and that there's no point in making decisions. And technically I kind of am on board with that idea, that I feel like it's very hard to blame people once you take on the deterministic view.
As well as praise.
Yeah, for sure.
Like I know this with myself. Like my cousin recently mentioned, "Oh, you have a good heart," and I was like, "Okay, but like, I don't actually have I don't know. I don't actually have a good heart. I'm only doing these things because
you desire them."
Yeah, because I desire them, and
what you desire tends to align with what's good for a lot of people.
Yeah, just got lucky with that.
Yeah.
Do you guys want to talk about the benefits of determinism? Because I think that's probably the biggest thing for a lot of people that don't like.
Well, we should probably break down exactly what determinism is, and then get into that.
Yeah, I think we did break it down a little bit before, but yeah, like I think a big concept of determinism is just essentially just the cause and effect chain, that everything that happens was caused by something prior, and that the prior thing was caused by something prior to that. And there's nothing in the universe that hasn't had a cause, because there's no evidence of nothing happening that's not cause and effect.
Yeah, I heard this proposition, and it was like, I'm not gonna get into it because I can't. Never mind. I can't remember it well enough, but it was a really interesting thought about the idea that even if something appears out of nothingness, like even that would not be an indication of I don't know, I forget exactly what it is, so we'll just skip over that. But I probably shouldn't have even mentioned it, but it's okay.
And so this comes down to your DNA, your neurons firing, comes off with everything.
The environment.
Yeah.
Experiences.
Yeah. Nature versus nurture. Now, on to the next subject. That's kind of a joke with Caden, his philosophy professor. What was it again?
He was. I immediately knew he was going to be talking about free will. He started to ask all the students. He started asking us, like, if we had like a machine and could calculate every single thing, our neurons, an experience someone had, the past, stars across the galaxy, just every little thing. And then someone immediately raised their hand and they said, "Oh, this is just nature versus nurture." And he says, "Correct," and then just moved on. And I was so shocked by that because first I wasn't too sure if he was going there, but it sounded like it. And I just couldn't wrap my head around what just happened.
Yeah. And there's so many implications of believing in free will or not, and determinism or not. And I don't know if it's necessarily a binary, whether you believe in determinism or free will. Like, I know... Well,
I feel like they do have to be binary.
Essentially, yeah. Like, in my head, like, I do agree with that, but I do think that there may be...
Are you not presuming compatibilism to possibly be true?
Yeah, but I mean, I could see that it's possible for free will to be true. For me, it seems that... determinism seems to be the most likely of them all. And does this segue us into talking about a little bit of compatibilism?
I think we have to now.
Yeah.
So just mentioned it.
Yeah, so I'll just describe the concept just super quick. It's essentially people who like the idea of being able to have free will, but also seem to have an understanding of determinism, and once you have I feel like a really good understanding of determinism, it's really hard to argue against it and not be convinced of it. And so I think that these people that have a feeling of liking free will want to have it be compatible with one another.
Where do they draw that line? Like, because I'm assuming it's the same. Like, I have a soul, but everything's still kind of determined, and in a way, I kind of have choice. Where do they draw that line?
The line that I've heard some people draw is anything that...
I was going to say, I have no idea.
Yeah, the line that I've heard is anything that that's an internal influence, technically, is a free will decision. Anything that's externally influential is determinism.
Okay.
But that
I was going to say, but still, like, me choosing to want pancakes, like, I feel like there was still...
Yeah, or
something
even
that determined that.
Yeah, and
if I could,
I'm of the opinion that they cannot be compatible, or at least I can't see a way that they're...
No.
Yeah, because even if it's an internal decision, like, your internal decisions are based on external facts or effects or causes,
quote unquote, like, or your DNA, like, which I don't know if you'd consider those external, but
yeah, if they consider it, regardless of if the compatibilists consider your genetics or DNA to be internal or external, they're still affected by the environment.
Yeah.
There's no decision that we can make in a vacuum away from reality.
I do know that I feel like I need to be presenting the names of these scientists who did this study, but I know that there's a huge debate between DNA being nature or nurture, and there really isn't a conclusion on that. But I do know that I told you this, Colton, how there was a study done where they can look at DNA from a child, and it's not 100%, but to a percent, they can determine whether that child will have a divorce or not in the future. I mean, it's not, oh, I know for sure, but it's
A probability.
a probability, exactly.
That's interesting.
Isn't it? God, it's something I was reading in my psychology textbooks. They were talking about nature versus nurture. They were showing how, this is kind of off topic, but they were showing how if a child has a mother who is schizophrenic, and the mother raises that child, and if the child has the schizophrenic gene, then there's like a 30% chance that they'll turn out schizophrenic. If they don't have that gene and they're raised by the mother, it's a 4% chance. Now, if the child has that gene and is adopted, it's a 4% chance still, even though they had that gene. But because they were raised in a different environment. But then you go to different things, so
Yeah, I think nature and nurture, at least for me, like I feel like the lines become increasingly blurry as you get into philosophy, especially determinism. Like, it doesn't seem like there is a clear line where things become nature or nurture. I guess unless you want to have it be a sociological model, maybe, and having a clear line of like society ingrains this in a person versus like literally your genetics, and like I think you might have to include non-social environments, but even then I feel like it might still be blurry because like people's social interactions affect your non-social environments. Like, for example, I might be by myself, and I may, I don't know, be cultivating like a bonsai tree.
I see.
And that's like a non-socialized effect, like, or it's by myself in my own environment, but society might have like introduced me to bonsai cultivating, or pressured me into being like, oh, this is a cool trend that I needed to get into, or whatever it is. Like, lines are still super blurry with
a good example I heard was if someone has the gene to be really tall, but if they don't eat properly, they will not reach that.
Yeah, I always thought nature was just your genetics, and then nurture is everything that happens once you're born.
Yeah, but I mean that's exactly what it is. But if they have this gene to be tall, which would be DNA, but then
so there's more discussion on which one is more, like which one influences you more, or
okay. I don't know how we got into it, but anyway, I just know that there's a huge, like Colton's saying, a blur. Like it seems to be.
I've been very fickle on where I am regarding nature versus nurture, and which one's more prevalent, I guess, inside of us, if one of them is more prevalent or powerful. I used to be super of the opinion that nurture was like the biggest thing, but I think that stemmed from the desire to displace blame, and like to not feel like I was responsible for who I was or where I was. Like it made me feel more comfortable, like associating all my problems with various factors that happen earlier. Like for example, a lot of the issues I saw in myself, I would correlate back to my childhood, and then kind of put the blame there, and I don't know, it was more comforting feeling. But I think that I'm much more kind of 50-50, or towards 50-50, maybe like 60% nurture, 40% nature. But
I think that's probably the most reasonable way to look about it.
Shall we get into the kind of the practicality or side effects of kind of ideas that you almost have to adopt if you take on determinism and free will?
And kind of how its applicability or yeah, to the I mean, I guess it's not, I guess, lack of applicability to the
Judiciary.
I cannot say words today. I'm
Yeah.
just gonna say it's because I'm tired, you know, a little bit hungover still, but like
Long night.
judicial system,
Oh yeah.
like you.
I think that's where, at least for me, it has the biggest effect.
I feel like it has. You should not factor in almost free will in those, or lack of free will in those, but rather have. But like when you're in regards to your emotions about people or how you view people or your perspective on someone, I think it's super beneficial. And yeah, but in the judicial system, I still feel like you kind of you have to judge their actions and kind of presume that they have had free will in that situation, that they weren't forced to. Otherwise, how do you even ascribe responsibility in any way?
So I would,
Or is the whole? Actually, I could see the judicial system just being a practical thing, in the sense that like you're not really. I mean, it's a Nietzschean idea that when you're disciplining someone or punishing someone, you're not really punishing that person, but you're punishing you're punishing their parents, like everything around them. But like I guess so. A reason that the judicial system is practical is because it's a deterrent to other people from committing those same actions, and so you need to have that deterrent. You need to have like, yeah, I guess just that deterrent. But
yeah, and I do agree that some amount of having a deterrent is a good thing. I think here we'll start to get into the differences between a punitive judicial system versus a reformative judicial system. And I think depending on whether you are on board with free will or determinism, I think they may have an effect on which one you believe, but not entirely and not always. For me, I feel like with my belief in determinism, I can appreciate some amount of punitive justice to deter people. However, I don't think that our judicial system should be based on punishment. It should be based on reform and essentially trying to quote unquote reprogram people to change their environmental experience that has led them to be in the mindset that committing certain actions against other people or whatever it is that we don't want in society is not okay, and making it so the process can be really expedient to get them through this reformative justice, like kind of getting them into prison, having them take classes or whatever it is, having psychologists on hand to go over their thought processes on things and get them back into society to be a productive member again, and contribute.
What if there's someone who like they've been working with him for a long time and he just can't? Would that still be, we would somewhat punish him by keeping him contained?
Yeah. And I do think that like inherently it's technically a punishment to be like forcing these people to be reformed, but I do think that it's much more reasonable than just straight up punishing people for what they did and not trying to solve the problem of why they're doing the things. And I do understand that it's like possible for there to be somebody who can't be reformed, and theoretically I would be on board with like a death penalty for these people.
I was gonna say, what do we do? Do we send them to Siberia?
Yeah, and but I do have an issue with being able to make a case for like in a practical sense. I don't think we have the tools to determine whether or not somebody is incapable of being reformed.
Does that lead to the as if? You know, like the reason why you act as if there's free will is because we cannot. Like I have to act as if there's free will, even if I believe in determinism, because there's no way that I will actually know what is determining my actions. Because I would have to calculate everything.
Perhaps. I, in a practical sense, I think acting as if you have free will, it's just practical. It makes sense. Like you don't have to believe in free will, but acting as if you do have it, and like your choices
I
are
think it was beneficial. I'll make that leap
for sure.
Yeah.
But in regards to like judging people or kind of like your views on other people, I think it's more beneficial to understand that there is no free will, and that people kind of just
I think it makes it so you're more understanding, and it causes, at least for myself, I feel a lot less frustrated when people are doing things that hurt me or are against my goals in life, because whatever environment or cause and effect through the ages has led to them being there. Like, it's not their fault.
Yeah.
Like, they're a victim of circumstance, essentially.
That and the idea that every action is selfish also grants me some comfort in that I understand if someone fucks me over or does something, like, I can't blame them. They're just trying to be happy, you know? Like, they're just trying to bring them what's most pleasurable. And yeah, it sucks that I had to be afflicted in some way by it, but I can't really blame them. Like, all I'm doing is trying to be happy, quote unquote, or like trying to all my actions are selfish as well. And so when someone else's selfish action just negatively affects me, it's not like I can really blame them. I can be upset by it, but it's not like I can really blame them for it.
For sure. Yeah, and I think that there's a lot of practical, just everyday usefulness of understanding determinism and being able to like let go of grudges, you know, just not blaming people. I think acting as if there is free will, so that you can like praise people, I think may be a good thing still. I think praise towards other people can be a fairly beneficial thing. But the lack of it, I don't know if it's all that harmful.
It gets them to do
would you
what you want
would you
them
not
to do.
still be able to praise their actions and not the person themselves?
Yeah.
Which is what I think we're already doing. It's just without knowing that. Like, when we praise someone, we're praising their actions rather than the person themselves. Or like,
maybe it's possible we are praising them specifically for being so lucky to have had the determined path to doing that action.
yeah, that's true.
I mean, and if we're talking about benefits, it's also going to benefit you in a way. If you praise someone because they did something, especially towards you, then it's just going to make them want, like, they're just going to continue doing that same
You're
thing.
encouraging that same
Behavior.
behavior. Yeah.
And I guess that's also where some sort of punishment you'd probably like that's also why, like, when you get angry, if you know, if your dog bites you, you're gonna punish them because you don't want them to do that to you again, but you're not gonna hate them for doing it. You know.
Yeah, I think that there's some, I haven't thought about this before, but now that I am thinking about it, I think that it makes sense, and I think a lot of people kind of understand determinism through looking at their pets, because they understand
It's
that
the
their
easiest
pets
way.
may not have free will, or their pets have like a much more simple thought process, to where things that they do that are positive, reward it; things that are negative, that you don't want them to do, punish it. And you know, it is different than the human condition, because
people will propose that we have consciousness, or
I was gonna say, I don't think it's
other people proposing we have
I don't
a soul.
think it's different, but I think other people think it's different.
yeah, and I think, like,
Especially if you're religious.
Yes.
yeah, and I think that added complexity for humans makes it so, like, we can reform them, whereas a lot of animals we can't do.
Okay. Yeah.
Reform.
Yeah, I agree.
So for animals, it oftentimes being punishment, reward. For humans, we have reform, punishment, and reward as options.
Yeah.
And I would much prefer to see, you know, punishment used as a deterrent, but not as the main tool to get people to not do things or to
I agree.
to discontinue their actions that we don't want them to see them do.
So what would be a better alternative?
Like the reformative justice.
Yeah, but how would that in any way be an encourage or discouragement of a certain type of action unless someone had already committed it? Because what like
that's why I said that I am on board with a certain amount of
okay.
punishment as a deterrent.
Yeah, but it shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be like the focus. It shouldn't
be
be
the main
about
focus of these
punishing somebody. It should be
jails.
about
You go to prison for,
Yeah.
and that's it. We're not gonna help you.
yeah. We're like
Not
that's
gonna-
where I feel like we're at in America right now. It's
Yeah.
just punishment, and we're not trying to help people become productive members of society. Like if you look at the
Oh, that's really true. I think there would be people would say that they're trying to reform people, but I just don't think we're doing it in a correct way or a practical way or like a way that's going to result in reform.
Sure. I think there might be like political speak about it, or not political. What is it? Corporate jargon used to make it so certain like private prisons can get away with saying that they're doing reformative justice when in actuality they're just punishing.
I'm not
them.
saying that like all of them are doing it as a whole, but I feel like that's the general accepted goal of these prisons is reform. Like that's still the common accepted goal.
I'm not sure about that. From everything that I've seen, it seems to be punitive, but I could be wrong on that.
No, honestly, I don't
Because I've seen like in a lot of European countries, like they have a huge focus on having reformative judicial systems where their their recurring criminality rates are much lower than ours, whereas in America in America our criminals reoffend significantly more than other countries that have a significant emphasis on reformative justice.
Yeah, and I could see that. Like I was saying, I definitely don't think we're, regardless of what our goal is, we're definitely not going about it the right way, even if that isn't the goal already.
Oh yeah.
Like there
I see
definitely
what
should be changes. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Then
A lot of the free will probably has to do with that too, because a lot of people think like, oh, that's just who they are.
yeah,
Let's throw them
Yeah.
in. You
Well,
know?
wouldn't that be not free will then? Oh, that's just who they are.
I mean, yeah, they have free will. Sorry, that's just who they are, and they just throw them in.
yeah, and I think like I do understand that for like the argument from people who believe in free will is that's just who they are, and I think that kind of implicitly describes that there's not a way to reform them, or there's not environmental conditions that could push them towards not re-offending.
Yeah, and that that kind of coincides with like the labels good and evil, or good and bad. Like, oh, that's a bad person, or he's an evil person. Like, I don't think that there's ever like I don't think good or evil exists like explicitly. I don't think that there can ever be a good or evil person.
Objectively.
Yeah, objectively. Of course, subjectively. So like,
Yeah.
that's gonna sound terrible, but like, actually, I'm not even gonna mention names. We won't get into specifics because I feel like they'll just rile up emotions and isn't necessarily needed.
I get you.
But yeah, I don't remember where I was going.
Should we get more into the practicality of free will, or should we move on to some other stuff?
One thing I do want to bring up is, have you? And this is just me asking because I'm not quite sure. Have you guys ever heard someone say that they believe in free will because there's no way that it's like they believe in determinism, like it makes more sense, but because they act as if there's free will, they believe that there's free will because they cannot calculate everything. Does that make sense?
Oh, because things are incalculable,
Yeah.
that it essentially proves
It's like it
free will?
yeah, it's like there's a very high probability that it is calculatable, but because we can't, the as if there's free will is why they believe that there's free will. Does that make sense? Or why? Like that's what they would say.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, I feel
now
like
this
then
is
you're just going off a feeling.
this is just how you're gonna label it now.
Yeah,
you know?
and I feel like that's almost, it's similar to a lot of theologian arguments where I'm really into atheism if it's not apparent. So like I just relate a lot of arguments to like atheist versus theologian
Everyone's
arguments.
tied into it, so it's easy
Yeah.
to get to.
For sure. And I think it's kind of the argument that you're proposing is similar to the argument that a lot of theologians, very generally uneducated theologians, will argue is, well, I can't explain this, therefore God.
That makes sense.
I feel like that's similar to what you brought up, or like the same kind of.
Well, the only difference
problem.
is that you know, you act as if there's free will. Like everyone acts as if there's free will.
Or should. Or
Ye-
quote unquote should.
Yeah. Yeah.
Depending on what their goals are
Mhm.
in life.
And also like that line, like is it cherry picking if we're saying like, oh, we're gonna act as if free will, but you know,
Oh.
also determinism is beneficial in this way. So it's like we're, you know,
Mhm.
now we're picking what's beneficial from both sides, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I haven't thought about this at all. I'm just asking you guys because I know.
I think in the same way on the last episode when we were talking about how religion may be a useful tool for a certain time, in the same way, what was the branch of psychology you guys were talking about? Humanistic
Oh, yeah.
psychology. It might be useful, not necessarily the truth, but it's still useful
And
as
very
a tool.
empowering. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
That makes sense.
So in that same way, I feel like acting as if there's free will may be useful, although I don't think that there's any evidence of it being true.
No. I agree with you.
and kind of, I guess, want to share the two premises.
Oh yeah, I feel like this argument, these two premises that lead to this conclusion, are perhaps some of the best argument I've heard for
The most simplified, like the
Oh, yeah.
easiest to understand, I guess. But so what it is premise one is everything you do in life is because you desire to do so. That or you're forced to, but if you're forced to, you obviously don't have free will. So this is more referencing the quote unquote choices you get to make in life. So everything you do in life is because you desire to do so, and desire motivates action. Should we break that down real quick and kind of
yeah, let's go
give
premise by premise.
give our quote unquote proof for these being true.
Yeah. You want to say the first premise again real quick?
Yeah, everything you do in life is because you desire to do so. Desire motivates action.
Yeah, I think that they're, at least the arguments that we've been hearing lately tend to be, well, what if I desire to, or what if I don't want to go after certain desires, or what if I prefer to go over to after these other desires? You're still having a desire to pursue certain desires.
Mhm.
Like,
Or to not pursue
yeah.
a certain there's always going to be a more powerful, like a desire at play,
Mm-hmm.
no matter what. Like, we could give a few examples. Like, just start thinking to yourself of potential things where you're saying no to your desires, and really think, is there not another more powerful desire at play? Like, for example, with going to the gym, people would say, I don't desire to go to the gym. Like, that sounds miserable. Well, you desire to be happy, and that, or healthy, sorry. You desire to be healthy, and that desire to be healthy is outweighing the desire to not go to the gym, or to
Play
take a
video
nap,
games.
or yeah, exactly.
Anything that you would have rather or would have otherwise done instead of going to the gym, you are having a larger desire to do or go to the gym. And I think that's as basic as it gets for
Mhm.
any action. Or
And you don't get to pick your desires, right?
yeah, like
That'll be premise two. Yeah.
yeah, and that is the next premise. And should we move
But like,
on?
I don't understand how you can ever conclude that you can, or like, how you can conclude that you can be free from these desires, separated from these desires, that you can do something in life in which you did not desire to do so, or were not forced to do so.
For sure.
Um,
Yeah, and even like recently we've been talking about mushrooms a bit, and I've had some personal worries about ever trying mushrooms because I've felt that it may change my perspective, and I think even more so than that, talking about free will and such, it's made me think that I worry about having my desires change after taking it. However, if I take mushrooms, it would be a desire to take these mushrooms, and it would change my desires, but I'm still not having a choice in which desires of mine change if mushrooms would change those desires.
Yeah, because the reason your desire would change is because you have a new perspective.
Yeah.
And that new perspective you didn't choose to have.
Right. Well, shall we move on to the next premise?
Yeah. So then premise 2 is you don't choose or control your desires. And if you don't control your desires, but your desires control your actions, you don't control your actions. So therefore, you don't have free will. And I guess like the most important thing is you don't choose or control your desires. And I think that is true. Everything is predicated on everything else that has happened before, which kind of leads back to the cause and effect proposition. But yeah, you never at any point get to explicitly choose which desires you have. You may, yeah,
or even implicitly, explicitly or implicitly, like you have no choice in your desires. Technically, I guess if you have a desire to change any desire, then I mean you're still acting upon desires, but you're still not having an actual choice in any of them. I feel like this argument is just so basic; it's hard to go too in depth on anything.
But for some reason, I still hear so many problems with it. Like I've heard many people who have presented these two premises too argue against it, and I don't see how you can like it. I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't heard much any really sound arguments against it yet. But this argument is fairly new to me.
Yeah. Yeah, true. Maybe we just haven't thought through it 100% or something. But
yeah. It does seem to be so simple and so
apparent.
Yeah.
Apparently true.
Yeah. And and it makes me super suspicious of how apparent it is, or how it almost feels obvious.
Yeah.
Like, and it makes me super suspicious of it. But it's hard. But it's still hard because it's so obvious. But I want to question it more. But I feel like I don't necessarily have the tools on hand right now to question it for much further.
Yeah, I'd say same. Because
Did we get an email set up so people can?
We do have an email.
Set their input.
Yeah, it is. It's in the bio.
Okay.
It'll be in the bio.
Whatever it is.
I'm pretty sure it's Skeptic Minds podcast at gmail.com.
Okay, and people can, if they have input on anything, they can.
Yeah, that's good to mention.
Yeah, you can email us. We'll be going over emails probably prior to the podcasts. I think that would be a good place to be, maybe even after, and then we'd have a week to go over any of the emails if they're really
if we want to mention them in the next episode, or
or if it's something that we need to look into more.
Nice. Sounds good.
Cool.
Only because I know that us three, I mean, we're different, but it seems like we kind of follow similar thought patterns, and so it'd just be interesting to hear other people's inputs, you know.
For sure. And I think the three of us have all kind of heard about what is it? Like feedback loops, or what is it called? Echo chambers. That's what it is.
Yeah, I was gonna say bubbles.
Yeah, echo bubbles. I
was gonna say bubbles, not echo bubbles.
All right. Yeah, but I'm sure we're all familiar with the idea of echo chambers, and there's a lot of, especially political echo chambers lately, and I I think philosophically we don't want to get trapped in these philosophical echo chambers.
But it's easy to.
And I guess the idea is just like you don't want to be completely surrounded by people or things that agree with you, because then you can get trapped into thinking that you are right and not hearing these other. You can get trapped in certain thoughts, and then if you never hear disagreements to them, you can believe with certainty that they are true, and then you're never going to expand your perspective on the world or find new ideas or new truths, quote unquote.
Yeah, and I think as long as you're stepping out of your echo chamber at least once in a while, like I don't think that you have to make sure that you're always in opposing, like, or around people that have opposing viewpoints on everything, like 100% of the time. Like I think it's totally fine to be around other people who have an agreement on certain viewpoints, and
they can maybe help you strengthen your.
Yeah, they can help strengthen your argument. And
they're more likely to be friends.
yeah, just agreeing on certain things, like you can become friendly. Like if you have things in common with other people, it creates friend groups.
Yeah, I know that was actually I was really hesitant to do this podcast because I like that anytime I talk to anyone about anything kind of philosophical, I immediately think in my head like, oh, I don't know anything, and so my main reason was I thought this would be a great way to learn, by talking to you guys, because I know you guys really get into it.
Oh yeah.
And so I also thought I would be beneficial maybe asking questions, because I know that it's intriguing for me. So
for sure, like for me, my biggest hope for like the audience that we cultivate is people who all have like as a fundamental belief that any discussion is on the table, that they're open and not going to get belligerent, having almost any
they're willing to
discussion.
put aside their presuppositions, or like I guess not completely put aside, but like at least be able to reflect on
and really consider
counterpoints.
Have genuine consideration of other beliefs,
and the validity of them.
And not and I don't think that I think if we ended up having an audience that was like 99% in agreement with us on everything, I would feel as though kind of disappointed in myself for maybe creating too much of an echo chamber. But that's in the future.
And then I feel like we might be pandering too specifically towards a certain type of people if that was the case.
For sure.
And that would kind of reflect on our inability to really take other people's ideas and beliefs into consideration. Yeah,
and I don't want to just sit here and be like, this group's so bad, to where we have nobody in that group in our audience to defend those positions or bring them up. Even if I disagree with them fervently, like anybody who's a theologian, I have fervent disagreements with a lot of religious beliefs. But I welcome. Still, you're totally welcome in the group, and I would love to have discussions.
It's actually really intriguing. I love to learn about different religions, just how they were brought up.
I always have such a keen interest in religion, because I feel like it's
the quintessential question of life.
Not so much that. For me, it's always like
I feel like that's honestly the most important thing in life, because it dictates your eternity. If it is true, then it's eternity at play. Like, it's like they like almost scare you into like having to think about whether or not there's a God, because if there is a God, then it's eternity at risk.
I get that.
And that's like, what's more important than your eternity?
What usually sparks my interest in them is the fantasy of it. And I don't mean it as a dig, but it feels like reading some sort of novel or what is it? Percy Jackson's. Is it Percy Jackson that wrote that one book about like the Greek gods?
That is the book.
Oh, that's the book? Okay. I'm an idiot then. I don't know who wrote the book, but
his name is on like the tip of my tongue, but I can't remember.
Yeah, well, yeah, that series, like, I loved it. And, you know, like, if we were back in the time of people actually believing in Greek gods, it would be really offensive to say, oh, I love the fantasy of this series about their gods.
True.
And I don't mean any offense by it. It's literally just super interesting to me, like, the ideas that people come up with, regardless of their truth.
No, I definitely agree. I think that's why it intrigues me so much.
Wait, did you guys just hear that hella high pitched noise?
No.
No.
What the fuck? Either I'm a dog or it was only in my head.
Either I'm a dog.
Like, either I have really good ears or like that was just in my head. But I heard this hella loud ringing coming from over there. That was really strange. Or not, and it was super, super high pitch.
Was it?
Like it sounded
I
like a
didn't
dog
hear it.
whistle. That was weird. All right. Anyways.
I do have bad hearing though.
Yeah. Sorry to completely
Sometimes I do
sidetrack.
too. We can just cut all this out.
Okay.
We don't have to, though. I don't know.
Doesn't matter to me.
Yeah,
Where else
but
are we?
I agree. Like, religions are incredibly like that. They're great stories. I don't mean that in a like negative way. Like, even if they are true, I would still call it a story. Just for in this.
They have really good
context.
life lessons.
Yeah,
Like,
there's a lot of good metaphors and yeah.
Like the the Buddhists talk a lot about letting go, you know, which whether you believe in their God or not, I think is somewhat important. You know, so it's like every religion kind of has their, it's a whole culture, you know, it kind of creates people.
Yeah, and I heavily disagree with Jordan Peterson on so many things, but I do think that his appreciation for the archetypal stories of whatever from religion, I do think that there can be use still drawn from them in a secular society.
Yeah.
Sure.
But I don't know if people usually are reading. I guess I was gonna say I don't know if people are usually reading the Bible with that much, like looking out for metaphors or like interpreting them in a certain way. But I guess that's kind of the point of church. Is like usually in church in these lessons, they'll present the metaphors or how they're applicable or why they're applicable or stuff like that, rather than just give you explicitly what it's saying.
Yeah.
Though I guess that varies church to church.
Yeah, it depends on the sect of the church as well as the religion in general.
Yeah. Oh, true. Yeah.
On how metaphorical or literal readings can be, or how much of it's like just poetic and not metaphorical.
Yeah, because you look at like the Southern Baptists. Were they the ones that were like hold the signs like God hates gays?
That's not Southern Baptist. That is I can't remember the name of it right now.
But anyways, they take the Bible literally. They're
extremely
a very
literally.
small part of Christianity that takes every bit of the Bible as is.
Yeah, I feel like we can rail against this religion more or this sect of Christianity.
Yeah.
More than anything else, because I think there's probably 40 people in this church.
Yeah,
I'm pretty.
It's a family.
Yeah, it's a family.
I do believe they have some people who've come in, but it's specifically a family. A Westboro Baptist.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Westboro Baptist Church, dude. Yeah, these guys are crazy.
Yeah.
Like,
have you ever listened to? There was this girl who was part of that family. She was the daughter, and she left the church, and she's been on a couple podcasts and stuff.
Oh, I've seen her in a documentary.
Okay.
But not for a while.
Yeah.
Her story is really interesting.
It is, yeah. Yeah, I think she did a podcast with Jordan Peterson, possibly, if I'm remembering correctly. And that was really interesting.
Yeah, the idea that there's so much freedom to be able to... The amount of freedom that we have to almost allow certain people to be caged from that freedom by family members or cult leaders, whatever it is, it's sometimes astonishing that technically we have enough freedom to be able to have these cults in America.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about religion in general. I'm talking about like specifically like cults.
Yeah, it's crazy that people are able to be influenced so heavily by a particular thing that there's their entire like perspective or worldview. And yeah, I think that's just a danger in general, is allowing one particular belief or view to be as prevalent or like to I guess base your entire worldview on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or to ascribe completely to it.
If we're gonna talk about cults and like, especially during, because you see a lot always come up when disasters kind of happen. Like during 9/11, a lot of cults came up, and during pandemics, so COVID.
When
like
people want something to believe in,
yeah,
or
they
need.
It's because they don't understand it, and so it's like they want.
There have been cults that have popped up with COVID.
I know recently it's been a lot of, our energy, because I hear them a lot, but it's a lot of like our energy is really negative right now, and and it's like those have always been there, but it's like for some reason these conspiracies really start rising up, and people start creating cults around these conspiracies. And so
not necessarily religious cults, but like idealistic cults.
Yeah, and for some reason, so it seems to be when disasters happen, and I'm assuming it's because they don't understand it, and they want to give a, kind of like a meaning behind it, like a heavenly meaning behind it.
Yeah, I totally understand.
I feel like it's almost a natural thing for humans to want to be in a cult, in the sense that like it seems, and I'm giving a very loose definition to cult. Yeah, in group. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, I definitely agree.
Yeah, and with the cults of ideology, or conspiracy, they're so dangerous, I feel like, where they're assuming so much to be absolutely true, or at the very least, they're implicitly assuming things to be true that are absolutely insane.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a lot of especially like the QAnon stuff.
What is that?
It's essentially a prank being pulled on Republicans by people on 4chan and Reddit, where they'll take like the identification number, not the license plate, but a different set of digits that might be on the back of like a presidential limousine, that if you like look at these digits and then go to that the letter in the alphabet that corresponds with that number, then you get a word, and then this word is like change, or like it's a date or something like that, and it's like something big is going to happen on this date.
I think that like a lot of people fall prey to that because it's like we're kind of designed to pick up patterns, and it's like so easy for us to pick up patterns. Like, have you heard that whole alien theory where people are like, oh, these pyramids were made, and then all these big monuments were made in this specific line, but it's like with
the ancient aliens.
Yeah, but it's like collectively we could have just we're pattern seeking.
Yeah.
That was the argument that I heard. I don't think, like, who knows if it's true, but an argument against it was just that I don't know how to present it, like collectively, like it was kind of like just a natural place that we just desired to place these monuments, if that makes sense. Just because we're pattern seeking.
The collective mind.
Yeah.
Collective unconscious.
Yep. I think a lot of these conspiracy theorists tend to not understand how much of these events or coincidences could literally, like, it could all be coincidence. Like,
yeah, they never try to prove themselves wrong.
Yeah, it's very rare that they,
because it's so easy to try to prove something right.
Yeah, it's so easy to make any like a type of presumption off of a couple coincidences or things that seem true or like could coincide, but I don't know how you can ever logically conclude it.
It's just a bundle of fallacies that they use to ask questions that presume a implicit conclusion. I feel like it's at least like what I've been experiencing lately from people who are into these insane.
Do you guys want to talk about flat Earth? Because I do believe in that.
My man.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Get off this podcast.
Yeah. For a while, I was kind of
serious for a second.
I could see your face. You just go. Oh man, I'll describe Rock's face, but it'd be too complicated. Too complicated.
Yeah.
I got a word for you. Beautiful.
Beautiful. It was beautiful.
For a minute, I was on board with the idea that if you are into flat Earth at all, it's easier to defend it than it is to attack it. Until I talked to our Wesley. Wesley is our Kate and I's friend.
Mm-hmm.
And he knows somebody or a few people who are actually into flat Earth, and he's figured out a pretty good argument against it, which is looking at the constellations. If you you don't have to leave Earth. You can be anywhere on Earth, and if you look up the constellations, there's no way to map the constellations consistently if the Earth is flat.
Haven't heard that
Why
one
is
yet.
that?
Because if we're on like a flying disc, if you stand on one edge of the disc versus the other, you wouldn't be able to connect the constellations. Whereas in reality, these constellations do connect. Like you'll see like a repeat of our constellations walking around the Earth.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Whereas if we're on this flat disk, there is we're only seeing a 180-degree view of the constellation, and if you were to look over the edge, there would be additional constellations that connect.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no way to map out the movement of the constellations in the northern versus the southern hemisphere on a flat Earth. I might be explaining it somewhat poorly, but looking into this argument,
I understand.
yeah, getting into this argument, the more, if you really look into it, it's it's a silver bullet for flat Earth.
Yeah, I'm guessing you could probably find more information on this if the listener, wants to find more information on it. By googling constellation counterpoint, counter argument to flat Earth.
Yeah.
Okay.
Speaking of constellations, have you guys ever looked through a telescope at Saturn or anything like that?
I've actually
Yeah.
never looked through a telescope.
If
Really?
you wanna,
Yeah.
if you wanna feel,
Dude, we should go to a observatory or whatever they're
Yeah.
called.
Yeah, I'm super down.
I have a telescope. I mean, you can see the rings and everything of Saturn, and
Dude.
they're Saturn's moons. I almost said his moons. I don't know why.
You know, you're just looking at a big painting, right?
Yeah. But it makes you feel very, very small,
I bet.
and yeah, almost like you have this feeling of wow, I don't really matter. They kind of crosses your
Do you
mind.
guys
for a minute.
ever, and I do it intentionally or consciously, do you guys ever try and leave your own mind, or almost get an eagle view of you?
Third person view.
Yeah. And so I would almost try and imagine myself leaving my body, my view leaving my body, and reaching up into the sky, and first looking at oh, here I am, this teeny person, this small person in a group of houses, and then I'd zoom out even more. Oh, I'm a dot in this city, and then zoom out even more, and I'm this teeny little speck that you can't even see on this planet, and it just I guess helps humble me in a way, or remind me that I'm just a part of something so much bigger.
Yeah. For me, I don't know why, all of my memories are in third person.
I'm trying to remember if
I actually really love talking about this because I also realize that a lot of people even their dreams, some people have third or first person, but also I realized a lot of people, for me, I have very visual dreams, which would be considered a crazy dream when I wake up saying I have a crazy one, whereas Savannah, my wife, when she says she has a crazy dream, hers isn't really visual at all. It's all emotional, and it got me realizing people have different.
Yeah, I think I'm wondering. I'm just having this thought now.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's reflective to your mental imagery and how intense that is. And so, if you don't have that powerful of a mental imagery, or creating mental imagery, then perhaps your dreams would be less vivid or visual.
Yeah.
And I was thinking actually today, how I feel like I developed a very strong mental imagery. I don't know if I'm like phrasing that properly, but anyways, from reading as a kid. Because I read
Okay.
all the time, and I just recall getting so lost in these books and like creating such powerful mental imagery where I was like literally almost visualizing
Mm-hmm.
the books that were happening. I could like create an image for it in my head, like almost like a movie for it in my head. And so I'm wondering if that being practiced led to a more more visual dreams.
Yeah.
And
It-
perhaps such a jump, but
I mean,
I just
I
had
don't
that
know.
thought.
I haven't read anything on this. I just kind of put that together because I always assumed like when someone said I had a crazy dream, it was like very eventful. There was just like colors,
yeah.
like you can't even imagine. You know, kind of
Oh.
like mine.
I've never had a dream like that.
Yeah,
That's
I've never had a
actually
dream like
insane.
that either. I was more thinking like
There's no way I could
it,
draw
like,
my.
I'm like in a
dreams.
movie. Like
Oh.
that's what I thought you were saying like
There's beings that I can't even that I've never even thought of before in my dreams, like that are ginormous and colorful and all that. And so whenever someone said they had a crazy dream, but I'm never questioning it and I'm never doing anything.
do you think maybe those you have seen them before? It's just that they're while you're tripping or something, and so you can't.
Possibly.
can't
Because it's always like I'm not scared, I'm not concerned, and I always have the feeling that I've been here before, and I'm just observing, and that's my only goal is to observe everything that's going on in my dream. And if it's emotional, it's gonna be visually emotional. Like, you know, if I'm feeling fear, it's gonna be everything's lit on fire. You know.
Well,
and it's only dawned on me because I was having Savannah describe her dream, and usually people describe their dreams and you kind of zone out because they're just like, there's no way you can even describe this. And anyway, she was describing it to me, and something was kind of intriguing in her dream, so I questioned her on it, and she was like, oh no, it was just kind of like really gray, like I couldn't see any faces, but I just felt really scared. And she goes, I know that kind of sounds silly, and I was like, I mean, it does sound silly. Like, I've never experienced
is
that.
that not similar to yours?
No.
Where it's just experiencing, it's just that hers are gray versus yours are more colorful, but it seems like it's still there's the idea of the entity that you can't really see, or like that doesn't have a particular face or something.
Mine always have faces.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Every single time.
I feel like most of my dreams, when I have them, are things that could happen in real life. Maybe aren't likely to happen, but like for instance, when I was a kid, I would have this reoccurring dream or nightmare where I'd be in a movie theater, and then I like get up to leave to go to the bathroom, and I'm walking by myself, and as I enter the bathroom, there's like bullet holes in the doorway, and so like that scares me, and then I leave the bathroom and start going down the hallway even more, and it somehow turns into my house. And I look through one room, or I look into the first door, and there's a room there, and it's my little sister's room, and there's just a ton of stuffed animals on the bed, and then I keep going, and eventually I get to my room, and then that's when the dream would always stop. But then, like later in life, I had that like, so that part was reoccurring, and then later in life the dream expanded, and it like, so then it would go from, once I saw my sister's room with all the stuffed animals, all of a sudden a guy popped out of the stuffed animals with a gun and like would try and kill me and would chase me through the house and like try and shoot me. Like that, those are what my dreams are. Or another one was I was basically kind of like in the Hunger Games, but instead of fighting each other, we're just trying to survive the animals, but they're still like, we're in a contained area, and people are like watching and observing, and it's like a game, but the entire time I'm just running from all these different like tigers or bears or like whatever it may be, and I'm like hiding in the trees and trying to survive. Like those are always my dreams, where it's like almost a movie, like it could be real life but stretched.
That makes sense.
Because what I'm getting from your description of dreams is it seems like almost like trips,
Yeah.
like where there's no way it could be real life.
There's places where it's like kind of resembles a little bit, like one that I'm thinking of right now. It like resembles kind of like me driving on Bangerter a little bit, like the area kind of did.
Bangerter is a freeway in Utah.
What did I say? Oh yeah.
Oh, just
I was like, did I say something wrong?
I don't know why you said that at first. I thought you were insinuating he said something wrong.
Oh, no.
Anyway, I don't know how I knew that I was on this, because when I think back on the dream, it didn't really look like it.
Right.
Besides the
yeah, I've
overpass.
definitely had that happen. Like, you identify something as being something, but then you reflect in like, okay, it wasn't actually that person, or it wasn't.
Yeah, like at all. And so that's what it's like. Like there'll be giant beings bigger than the mountains. Not humans, you know, just entities.
That's really interesting. It seems so much like a trip.
And
like,
that I've had that since I was little. That's my dreams have always been.
Huh.
And so I always just assumed everyone had that. So anytime someone's describing a dream to me and they're like, yeah, there's a moon, blah, 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 I'm like, it could be anything. Like, there's no way they can describe this to me.
The two biggest differences in my dreams from childhood versus now is, as a child, my dreams tended to be me floating in space from it was always first person perspective, and I was floating in like an obviously large space, like an infinitely large space that was just black, and like I could.
And you said this happened.
This was like a constant concept in my dreams, was just an empty void.
So this happened frequently.
Yeah, or like I would just be like looking at myself, and I might have like a hole in my arm, and I would be empty inside, and my veins would come out and choke me. That was a reoccurring dream I had.
Dude, I think you've told me this before.
Yeah, that's like one of the scariest dreams I've had. But now all of my dreams.
You did tell me, and I thought that was so whack. I was like, bro.
Yeah, and it always the vast emptiness of my dreams of just like looking around and seeing like I had no perspective of like I couldn't see anything in the distance, but I knew like looking into the black void, it was just infinitely like vacuous. But now like currently or more recently as an adult, my dreams are always from a third person perspective. I never have first person perspective dreams anymore.
Really?
Like it's almost like a camera that will jump cut to different areas. Like if in a dream I'm like chewing on, I'll have a dream recently where I'm chewing on rocks.
Like you're Colton?
It's my mind, but I'm not necessarily in my body.
Oh yeah, I guess that's what I meant.
But he's saying, are you observing yourself in this third person view always?
Not always observing myself, but it's kind of like a camera in almost a movie perspective. Like if in a dream, like a reoccurring one I've been having is chewing on gravel. Like I will go from like I'll never be looking through my eyes.
You should get a mouth guard. I bet that's because you're grinding your teeth while you sleep.
I think so too. But I'll have a dream that I'm grinding my teeth, and I'll go from like
on gravel.
Yeah, and yeah, chewing on gravel, and I'll go from a third person perspective, like kind of camera angle, to all of a sudden being like in the back of my throat, looking at the gravel being chewed by my teeth. And another recent example.
I'm your cousin, so I have slept in the same room as you before, and you do grind your teeth at night.
Oh yeah, I should get a mouth guard then. Well, like the scariest dream I've had, it was right after the earthquakes that we had. I had a dream that I was at my parents' house. I walked outside, and again, it's from third person, and I looked up at the sky, and then the camera pans up, and it's just a giant, not a meteor, but it seemed like just the universe was collapsing on Earth specifically for some reason, and it was like crazy colors and like spiral like heavenly bodies coming towards Earth, and like the impending doom feeling. I have never experienced it worse than that. I woke up just feeling done with life.
I know exactly what you're talking about. That feeling, like it doesn't happen like that intensely very often, but when you wake up, you're like that. Like when I die, it's gonna be like that. Like I accepted death in my dream.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. And
you wake up and you're just like.
That's why I love natural disasters. They like. I don't know, they're just so beautiful. Like you have no control, and like you just have to accept it.
Yeah.
Like it's just one of the only moments where you just have to completely surrender yourself. Like there's just not there's nothing you can do really.
Like that.
Or there's only so much you can do. Yeah. Or like an example of me accepting I was going to die. So my sister, Colton's wife, Kiana, and I were heading up to Idaho, and as we were on the road, it had been, I think, raining previously, but we hit this puddle, and the pretty large puddle, going probably like 80 or something, not crazy fast, but what's the word called when you like
Hydroplane.
Yeah, we hydroplaned.
Oh man.
Super bad. And so we hydroplaned to the point where our car was literally perpendicular to the freeway. Like we were sideways. And in that moment, I just completely accepted I was going to die. Like I just kind of sat there to myself, like I don't know how to describe it. I just completely accepted that we were going to die. But somehow Key fucking whipped it around, and we just kept going, and like we didn't say a word for a second, and we just sat there in silence, like what the fuck, like wow, like. But I 100% accepted I was going to die. Like I don't know, it was weird, but
it was probably like a humbling experience too. Like it,
yeah,
you know, you could always reflect back on it, and you're like, wow.
Yeah, because I feel like everyone. So there's this Buddhist, I think maybe it's Taoist, but somewhere in Eastern philosophy, there's this idea that in order to be happy, you have to remind yourself 5 times a day that you're going to die. And I was thinking about the practicality of it, and I feel like it is definitely beneficial to remind yourself you're going to die, because I feel like, yeah, we all know we're going to die, but we kind of like, we feel like we're just not going to die. I don't know.
And some people act as if they're not going to die, it seems like, too.
Yeah.
I'll never die.
And so I think it's humbling, and it reminds you to appreciate things and to not I guess to appreciate things.
One thing I always
not take it for
one thing I always pretty much tell anyone, like especially if we start talking about like religion and what's gonna happen, and you know, I always say like I don't know, but I always tell them like as far as I know, this is my only life. Like as far as I know.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's really humbling, because even your relationships with people, you realize like, you know, maybe this could be the only time I'm going to spend with them, and eventually like my relationship with Savannah will come to an end.
Mm-hmm.
You know, either we separate, I die, or she dies. Eventually it's going to come to an end. So that kind of humbles me in like appreciating my experience with her.
Or she gets abducted by the state, whatever it is.
Or aliens.
Aliens.
Yeah.
Dude, flat Earth, man. I'm telling you, it's real.
Yeah, I do think that the idea of realizing you may die is fairly important to, or it could be very helpful.
You
day-to-day
guys
life.
might like this. This is
You
kind
mean
of
will die?
Well, I don't know if we really will.
You guys might like this, but I don't remember if it was
Our earthly bodies will die. Are you safe saying that?
our souls will continue.
Who knows? What if we come out with what is it? Like
I see what you're
CRISPR
saying.
immortality.
Yeah, like Mr. Nobody.
Yeah,
I haven't
Possibly.
seen that yet.
But I feel like.
it's worth watching.
I'd
It's so
say-
good.
Oh yeah, you definitely need
Should I
to
watch it tonight?
Do it.
Okay.
Wait, watch it before we do the next podcast.
Okay.
Dude, the next podcast will be good if you watch it right before.
Okay. Anyway, before I forget this, I think it was. I don't want to say it was Nietzsche. It might have been though, and it possibly could have been Immanuel Kant. Yes. Anyway, but he was trying to describe meaning, and whoever said this, but they said that if you live in the present at all times, live in the moment, and do whatever is meaningful in that moment, always, then your life will be meaningful.
That reminds me.
I do not remember.
I think that's
it reminds me
Kant.
of
that's what I was thinking it was.
Maybe I'm thinking of another quote.
There's a Schopenhauer quote that like reminds me of that, and it's let's see. Of every event in our life, we can only say for one moment that it is, forever after that it was.
Yes.
I love that. Yeah, for sure. I feel like that's a good thing to remind myself. Like, be appreciative of the moment, because that's the only thing that you really have. Everything else is uncertain.
Yeah.
The moment is kind of what's most important, because otherwise you can just, if you're constantly thinking about what you need to do or what to do in the future or what happened in the past, you're just never going to be actually living. You're always going to be in your thoughts or you know, and you're never going to be, there's never an end to it. There's never like a moment where you're just, oh, now I can stop worrying or thinking about all these other things, and now I can live in the moment. Actually, maybe that's not true.
I don't think that's true, because I think that I have the issue. We were kind of talking about it before the podcast, where I mentioned that my memories tend to feel just as vivid as the present sometimes. Or I feel like most of the memories that I can recall are as vivid as my present.
As far as
time.
mental imagery, or as far as the emotions involved, because I will have memories, or like I'll think of memories in my head, and that'll elicit certain emotions, and like it'll make me laugh, or like make me sad, like just like, I don't know. Maybe that's not. Yeah.
I think it's more so that I feel like I'm almost having. It feels like I'm not experiencing the present. It feels like I am experiencing the memory and the lack of knowledge of the future of the memory when I'm thinking of the memory. It doesn't feel like I'm thinking of a memory. It feels like I'm experiencing it when thinking of a memory.
Really?
Yeah.
I've never experienced that.
I felt like everybody experienced that until I don't know how old I was, but then I realized like
That's how it was with
I
my
felt like-
dreams.
yeah. It was super weird.
This kind of reminds me of like it wasn't until recently like people that told me about ghost stories. I used to just like, you know, throw that away. I was like, oh, whatever. And same with like people's dreams, until it like dawned on me that like, you know, what they experienced, you know, that was real to them. You know, like their emotions they had in that dream, that was the most real thing at the time to them. And so now when they tell me this, whether I believe if it was an actual entity, like a ghost or whatever, you know, they possibly, if they're telling the truth, experienced that. And I want to, you know, they want to share that with me and share those emotions they had.
And the experience itself is interesting regardless of what caused it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to tell them, oh, you're lying, because maybe they did experience that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think almost any experience that people are genuinely expressing, that they're not lying, that they had a certain experience. Like, I don't think it's a good thing to try to invalidate people's experiences. If somebody is trying to use a certain experience as like a logical argument for something, sometimes it can be a little bit not a little bit, but I do think that it's really hard to justify anything based on just personal experience.
Yeah. Personal experience is the most unreliable proof out there.
For sure.
People are capable of delusions, like
eyewitness, you know, like the people who get accused of being the rapists who weren't.
Yeah.
Like that's all always
you can make
a lot.
You'll make like presumptions or conclusions based off of other false ideas that you might have, and then that'll lead to an even more false idea. But
for sure,
I don't even free will, and now we're talking about
we've
dreams and
I think we've been on a free will off topic of free will and determinism for a good like 45 minutes now.
Yeah,
which I think is fine. I feel like we've
keep it interesting, and
I feel like we put a
fun.
fairly decent bow on determinism and free will.
Yeah, and I guess is our goal here to convince people or to just share?
Personally, I'm just interested in sharing the ideas and kind of like because I've mentioned to you guys before, like I'm not 100% on board with really any of my beliefs. I'm usually like 20-30% sure of anything I believe in.
I'm open for my beliefs to change all the time.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's a big thing. And I think more so we're, at least for me, I'm wanting to present these ideas, hopefully get some like pushback on them, so then I can think about them further. Because I realize that sometimes like I don't push back on my own ideas enough, and it makes me not realize that there might be like a obvious flaw in some of them.
It's very easy to overlook them, like overlook the. I don't know. I guess it depends person to person how easy it would be to overlook them, but
Oh, for sure.
I think it's just a natural human tendency to overlook the counter or like the flaws in your argument or ideas because it's more comfortable to have beliefs.
Yeah, a lot of people feel absolutely certain about a lot of their beliefs, and I think that tends to be a pretty big issue. Having absolute certainty in anything, as far as I know so far, like I'm not absolutely certain that absolute certainty in anything is absolutely bad, but I'm fairly certain of it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I definitely agree. There's no such thing as absolute truth.
Yeah.
Just what appears to be true.
For sure.
Let's see. Ooh, I got a cool story to share. All right, so this past Sunday, I was up in this canyon with a couple people. Yeah, people I had never met, by the way. So I guess it makes this a little bit more sketch. But yeah, I was up in this canyon at like 2. Well, actually, I'm gonna tell you, Kaden, too, because I don't think you've heard this story. So Sunday night, so about 5 days ago, yeah, I was up in the American Fork Canyon, if you know where that is.
I live right at the base of that.
Oh, what the fuck?
Yep.
Okay, this is gonna
That
be hella
golf
creepy
course,
then.
I am right there.
All right, ready for this? Okay, so we're up there at like 2 a.m. and I'm with 3 other people, 2 girls, 1 guy, and so we're at Fish Lake, and we're just like making noises, hearing the echo, dumb shit.
Mm-hmm.
And so as we're doing that, all of a sudden we hear like a screech from across the lake. And we're like, what the fuck? And one of the guys, or the other guy I'm with, he's like, we need to go now. And I'm like, what? Why? He's like, because I hunt in this canyon all the time, and that is a mating call, and the only animals that make mating calls at night are nocturnal animals, but the only animals that are in mating season right now are like doves and ravens or something like that. He's like, that is from a human. We need to get the fuck out of here now. And so we're like, all right, we're dipping. And so we start heading back down the canyon. And as we're heading back down the canyon, we pass by this brand new white Mercedes on the side of the road heading up the canyon. And it wasn't there when we came up. We were only up there for maybe like 20, 30 minutes. It wasn't long. And so, yeah, as we pass this vehicle, the windows rolled down, and there is an old lady with her thumb out the window with the creepiest smile I've ever seen in my life. Like, her smile was like, I got you.
Oh.
It was like, she was like looking down. Like, it was the most sinister smile I've ever seen in my life. And like, everyone in the car was like, bro, that was like, her face was distorted. Like, obviously I don't think she actually had a distorted face or anything.
Yeah.
But like, that smile, I cannot get out of my head. Like, why would an old, like a 40, she was at least 40 to 50, why would a 40-year-old woman be driving up the canyon alone at 2 a.m. and be broken down in a brand new Mercedes? And why would she not just have like her emergency lights on or something? Like, I don't know. There's just so much that didn't make sense that made me, I feel like the most logical conclusion is that
Ghosts.
that this lady was trying to bait people into helping her, and then like who knows what they would do after, like rob them or kill the people who were helping. Like, it just doesn't make sense why she would be there alone, like heading up the canyon at 3 a.m. and broken down in a brand new car.
Yeah.
And so one of the girls I was with, she's like, we should stop and help her. I'm like, fuck no, we are driving. And so we just continue down the road, like, and we finally get to the base of the canyon. And also at this point in the canyon, there's no reception too. So that's what makes it even sketchier. Like, we couldn't be on the phone with someone and making sure we're okay, or like live streaming it to Twitch or anything. And so that's what also made it sketchier. And so once we finally made it to the bottom of the canyon, we called dispatch and said, there's a lady broken down up there, like, just in case she really did need help.
Yeah.
But like, dude, it was the creepiest thing I've seen in my life. Like, this lady's smile, I cannot get out of my face. It was just like, I'm gonna get you.
Dude,
like,
that canyon is kind of eerie, just heading up it in general at night.
well, there's like been a bunch of bodies found in that. Like,
Yeah.
Ted Bundy apparently buried a body in that canyon, and
Yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's kind of, I've always felt, a little uneasy every time I've gone up there. Just, I don't know.
And when you came home and were telling me and Key about that story, Key realized that what was it? Her aunt's boyfriend had almost an exact same story in Spanish Fork Canyon.
And when he told the police about it, they told him that that's what it was. It was a girl trying to bait people into helping her, and then other people come and rob them or kill them or yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, that's scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, almost identical stories.
Yeah, and like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but like, why would she be there? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe she was just a delirious old woman who was like lost or something. Somehow ended up in the canyon and couldn't figure out to pull into a parking lot and do a U-turn for some reason. Like-
yeah. No.
Yeah, I don't think it's like being a conspiracy theorist to say it's possible that she was trying to rob people.
Yeah, or her and some other people.
Or meme. Yeah,
Yeah, but that was terrifying.
for sure.
Dang, dude. I've never had any experience like that. That's
Yeah,
scary.
that was the only like that was my first one. I was like, bro, like this is stuff I hear about in stories. Like
yeah.
the fact that that actually possibly just happened is crazy.
Have you guys gone up to Ted Bundy's?
Which one? The
Like,
cellar?
yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't. There was a really creepy old like brick shack right next to where he buried a body apparently
Yeah.
in. Is that what you're talking about? That
In
place?
Emigration.
Hmm?
In Emigration Canyon.
No, in Spanish, like
Oh.
or in American Fork.
Oh no no
Okay,
no.
yeah. So there is apparently in American Canyon this like field where he buried one of the bodies, and then like going to that field, there's this like really small hut or something, and it's
Yeah.
made out of brick, and like it's teeny.
Like right when you walk inside, there's a hole that goes down.
No, not the cellar.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but
No, I didn't even know there was anything up there.
yeah, it's
I need to.
The
check that
cellar
out.
is super creepy. I think they might have
Yeah.
it locked off now or blocked.
They do.
just at the in this cabin or like this little room, the door was closed, and the girl I was with, she just fucking kicked in the door, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, I don't know.
It's like I don't believe in ghosts, but like if I go in a haunted house, you know, I mean a house that people say is haunted, I'm still gonna feel, you know,
Creeped
scared.
out.
You're only feeling creeped out because of the fact that you think that it's haunted, or like because you've been told it's haunted. Even if
Yeah.
you logically can conclude, like you're still gonna have the thing in your back of your head saying like, what if it's not?
Yeah.
Like, what if there are ghosts? You know,
Yeah, like
it's like, I feel like
and-
you
I-
almost,
I-
it's almost
I've
like a
never seen
delusion.
one,
Like you
but I
create
don't want
the
to.
you create the experience yourself.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And you start to misinterpret things like, oh, that sound up there, it's a
A
ghost
shadow
creaking,
or
or
something.
like, yeah, a shadow, like that was a ghost. Like you start to misinterpret things because you already have a predisposition.
or even just a suspension of belief.
What do you mean?
Like how like in certain movies, if like the acting is poor, you lose the suspension of your belief. Where like you're like, it's apparent that these are actors pretending to
I
be
see.
characters
It's
in a
fun
story.
in a way, like it's
Yeah,
an
whereas
experience.
whereas if a movie is good, there's good acting, there's good like CGI or whatever it is,
I see.
it can suspend your belief to like feel as if that universe is real, and you can like delve into it in your mind.
Kind of the same as like going to like a what are those, like a haunted house, like a Castle of Chaos or something like
Oh,
that. Like you can easily just be like, oh, this is fake, but then like, what's the point of that? You know, you just paid them $20. You're there.
Yeah.
You know, go to Ted Bundy's. You just took an hour drive to get up there. It's either you're gonna pretend like maybe there's ghosts and have fun and be scared, or you're gonna be sitting there in an empty.
I don't know. I
Random
don't
ass
view it
building.
that way. I view it as people died in this, and for that fact, it's interesting. And like Ted Bundy is
Yeah.
one of the most quote unquote interesting people in American history, and so like,
Did you guys watch those
and so for
documentaries
that
on him?
reason, I think it would still be entertaining despite not believing in ghosts, is because you know the history behind it, and it'd still be interesting for that reason.
That makes sense. Yeah.
I watched the first half of the movie
Wait,
that
what movie?
Zac Efron was in, where he played Ted Bundy.
Oh, I never saw that.
I watched half of it, and it was so boring. I
Oh.
stopped. I just don't
I like
don't
those.
get into serial killer stuff.
Oh,
or
I
murder
used
stuff.
to
I love
love
it. Have you
serial
guys seen
killers.
the new one that's on?
And that's kind of
Like,
like,
you used to love serial killers.
well, okay. I used to love learning about serial killers,
Yeah.
and also school shooters, and like all the like most quote unquote evil people in the
Yeah.
world. And that's how I realized evil doesn't exist, because evil is created essentially. Like you hear about every single one of these stories, and you learn about their past, and you're like, okay, makes fucking sense.
Yeah.
Mm.
Like, yes, there are people who don't choose to murder people and stuff like that, but the things that are happening to these people in their lives, like, some of them are so extreme that it's like the odds of the reason there are so little serial killers, and like why most people don't. Okay, so I'm explaining this poorly, but I think that the reason that there aren't a ton of like serial killers, despite it may not be the most uncommon thing to have a desire to or curiosity to kill someone, but I think that
The circumstances that bring people to that
are so unlikely.
point.
Yeah, and also like you have to factor in the fact that they had no one, no at least person that they respected to influence them to do otherwise.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because you only will adopt the beliefs or views of people you respect.
Mm-hmm. You guys ever watched Monk?
Yeah. Only a couple episodes though.
I thought that show was pretty interesting. About, does he have autism in the show? Like, I'm not sure if he has got actually.
I watched like probably 4 episodes when I was like 12, so I don't remember.
I remember just watching every episode of it back to back to back.
Wait, is that the one with the black guy and the white guy?
No, it's a detective that.
Yeah.
I think he might just have OCD. I'm.
Oh, okay.
And.
I'm thinking of Psych. Never mind.
Oh yeah, there's Psych. I never really watched that. I watched an episode or two, but Monk is like, he's got OCD. He's a detective for the police, and what is it? He always wears like the same tan gray suit, and he is so OCD that, like, one thing that I remember about the show is one of the villains in the show tries to plant a tracker on him, like by bumping into him in public, plants a tracker on him and starts walking away, and the monk guy turns around and looks at him, and for some reason the villain looks behind too and sees that he's looking at him, and he just starts patting his clothes. He's like looking around confused. He's like, I feel uneven, and then he pulls the tracker out of his pocket. Like, he's so OCD, he noticed that there's something now in his pocket.
Wesley has OCD.
Oh really? I never knew that.
Because I know that there's like different, every mental disorder, I guess there's different like
it's
stages.
A scale. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like kind of different types, obviously. But
It's so fluid.
Yeah, his, and I might not be saying this right, but I think the way it affects him is that every idea or thought that he has, he thinks is wrong. In a way, and
I didn't realize I was OCD.
no, and there's different types. Like, anyway, because it's like, OCD can also be like you play something and it's like, oh, that's wrong.
Yeah.
So it just like doesn't feel right. Like everything.
Obsessive compulsive disorder, right?
Yeah. So like. So
I-
somehow mentally with his ideas is how it's affecting him.
I can kind of understand that. Like, this is probably just perfectionism, but I feel like everything that I do, I feel like it has to be perfect, and if it's not perfect, I give up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only like in the past couple of years that I feel like I've really gotten over it, where I realize like I don't have to be doing everything perfect. Like, I know that it's never been an issue of me being perfect, but rather the things that I do. And the things that I do, I'm realizing don't always have to be perfect. They can be somewhat lackluster if I might just not be good at something, and that's fine.
Yeah. That's funny because I've also noticed that a lot of people, the things that they love to do are things that, that they're good at.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Well, that's why, like, I'm thinking of a conversation I had with my friend at one point, and we were discussing how you can basically do whatever you want in life, and he was like, well, if you're 4 foot, you can't be an NBA player. And I'm like, okay, but you wouldn't want to be an NBA player because you're not good at it, and like you typically will want to do the things that you're good at because that brings you joy. Like sucking at stuff does not bring you joy. And yeah, there's the thing of like being bad at it and then slowly getting better and improving and overcoming that badness. But like in certain situations you're just never gonna overcome that. You're always gonna be bad at it. So I don't think you'd ever really be able to enjoy something you're just forever going to be bad at.
I might be totally wrong on this because I don't know basketball, but I've heard that there's like sometimes exceptions, like some short people
like
who
Nate Robinson.
I don't know who that is.
He was like 5'4" or some shit.
Like,
or Spud Webb, I think, was another dude.
Maybe, but I've just heard of like some short people who are just really good, and being short sometimes might have helped them. Is the argument that I've heard sometimes, but like I could be totally wrong.
I could see that in the sense that like they can dribble lower to the ground, and so people who are tall might have more difficulty reaching in there, or like
and they probably shot from a distance. You know,
I had so many friends in junior high that were really short, but they were incredibly into basketball. Like they all wanted to be in the NBA.
But then they don't go anywhere after high school basketball.
Yeah, I don't think they went anywhere beyond junior high basketball.
I mean, it's to the point where I know you got this a lot, especially, but even I like, cause I mean, I was 6 foot in 6th grade, and then I just stopped growing. But everyone wanted me to play basketball. Like I always had coaches trying to get me to play basketball, and I was like, no, I hate it. I hate it so much. And I would finally play one time, and because I was like, I need to try it, man. I'm pretty sure they hated me being on the team.
Dude, I played like I like playing basketball with my friends or whatever, but I played an actual season or an actual season of basketball only once in 8th grade, and I was fucking terrible. Like I was so bad, and except for one game, for some reason I went off one game and I scored like, I think I got 7 3-pointers and then a ranged like 2-point jump shot, and so I scored 23 points in one game, and then the rest of the season I scored 2 points total. Like I don't know what it was. For some reason that one game I was just on, and then but I was terrible otherwise. And like I have pretty good handling, but other than that, like my shooting is pretty off. Or
mine's
like,
always been bad.
I've always sucked at passing in any sport because I'm always too hyper focused on like outplaying the person in front of me, or like especially in lacrosse or something. I'd be too focused on like juking and cradling and like me trying to shoot like how I can score, and I would suck at passing. And maybe it stemmed because my team sucked at lacrosse. Like everyone was new, and so I just didn't want to pass. But like
that makes sense.
I don't know, I always get way too hyper focused on trying to, I guess, perfect my whatever, like the dribbling I'm doing or the cradling or juking. Like I'm more focused on that.
I can't remember exactly what it was that you said, but it reminded me of in junior high. I was talking to the junior high volleyball coach about joining the team, and I think I was in 8th or 9th grade, and I was like super into it. I had a bunch of friends that were on the volleyball team, so I was like, dude, I'll join volleyball, have like a group of people that I play sports with that'll probably now be like my group of friends. And so I'm talking to the coach about joining the team because tryouts were coming up soon, and she's like, oh yeah, she was like all about it. She's like, we really need a tall person on the team, this is awesome. Like how many years have you been playing? I'm like, I've never played before. And she says, oh, don't worry about trying out then.
What the fuck?
Yeah. And so I was like, like, I mean, I might not be good, but am I still okay to come to tryouts? She's like, no, probably not.
What?
And I was just, I was in junior high. I was in 8th grade. Like,
that's so messed up.
Yeah, I felt like I just got torn down.
Yeah, like I feel like that's what we're encouraged to do in middle school, is try all these different sports even if you suck at them. Like,
yeah,
that's
and
so messed up.
She was the gym teacher, and she was always encouraging people to try out for teams. She's like, you're never gonna be like an athlete. Like, I don't know.
Who
She was
knows
always
how
trying
that-
to be super inspiring.
Oh.
But then as soon as anybody who hadn't been playing volleyball for 9 years already by junior high, she was like, no, don't even bother. I'm to try out. Like, we're the best of the best of the
And that
best.
shutdown, who knows how that affected you like throughout your entire life too.
Or at least for
Yeah.
a period, yeah.
Like I might have, like if I had gotten on the team, maybe I would have gone to college for volleyball.
Or even your psychology. Like, how did it affect your psychology?
Yeah, for sure.
You know. Yeah.
In the formative years, or being denied, just
Being
so upfront made me
being discouraged from trying new things.
maybe. I don't know, because the year after that, I tried out for swim team, got on the team,
Okay.
and then I just did that.
So maybe it didn't impact you too heavily as far as that in that regard.
Yeah, but I probably had a little bit of the tism.
Yeah. I think I got that.
Yeah.
Tism?
The tism. The autism.
That's so funny. Oh, why does that crack me up?
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like I
That's
always.
only funny because when I was younger, like I was always so paranoid that I was autistic.
Dude,
and just didn't know.
I
feel
all
like
the time, I've talked to other people, and people had this thought too, and I don't know why, but I would always think to myself, like, am I retarded and no one is telling me, and like everyone's just treating me normal to be nice to me, and I had no clue. Like, even in high school, I was like, am I retarded? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why I thought, but now
I
I
think
talk
it's
to
a
people,
common thought.
Yeah, a lot of people have thought that.
Well, because like even right now, I can just sit here and be like, "Are they only letting me on this podcast because it's like funny to hear some retard talk?" Or, you know.
Yeah, it's a sympathy host
Yeah.
or a diversity hire.
Exactly. You gotta have the special ed.
Yeah, we gotta hit our diversity quota.
Man. Dude, I was always so concerned about that, and like, you know, one thing I also realized is like, you get in, if you ever go to a therapist, they start talking about like trauma and all that, and you think, and everyone loves, especially like attention seeking people love to get on social media and be like, oh, it's my trauma. Everyone has trauma,
Yeah.
you know. There's things with people that like could be labeled as trauma, like every single thing.
I kind of agree with that. I do think that there are definitely people who have experienced a certain amount of trauma that is like very significant, and I think the majority of people probably haven't faced significant trauma.
Yeah,
I'm sure
I think
everyone's.
you may have different definitions. Of
I was
trauma.
gonna say,
I feel like you have a
it's
looser definition.
However you wanna label it, because like if you like, a lot of psychologists will, you know, say everyone has trauma, you know, and they try to find what your childhood trauma was, and it could be something really small. It's just something that negatively affected you.
Yeah, in the
Having
long run.
video
In the
games
long
taken
run.
away, dude.
Dude, that was my trauma.
That was my trauma as well.
When my parents
Not
beat
getting
me,
to play Age of Empires with you at your house, dude.
remember how our parents locked us in that closet and just like whooped us, dude?
Oh, dude. Yeah, those were the days.
Yeah, and would like choke us and.
Do you remember what they
Is
did
that
to
normal?
Mongo?
Like, did that happen to you? I'm just kidding. My
Yeah,
parents
these-
did not do anything.
Yeah, these are jokes. Remember Mongo?
Mongo?
Do you not remember Mongo?
No.
My parents used to scare me and my brother with Mongo, saying that he was our older brother that they had locked up in the cold storage in the
That would
basement.
scare me. That kind of gives me the chills thinking about that.
Like, like they said it jokingly enough to where like we were afraid, but we were pretty certain it was a joke. But still,
Yeah.
like there was enough talk about it
That's
that
so
we
funny
were
'cause
scared.
my dad always said that there was a kid named Alan that lived in the vents. And,
What?
Yeah.
Dude, why do your parents do that? What
And
the fuck?
and I was like, oh man, like it's like, you know, it's not true. It's like
man,
the last thing I
there's a
want to see
kid
is
named
some
Alan.
eyes staring at me. I'm gonna go over to the vent.
I don't
dude.
know why that reminded me of it. But I remember I was in like 8th grade or something, and I had this birthday party, and it was right after Michael Jackson had died. So maybe it was like 5th grade or like 6th grade. I don't know. But yeah, I think it was like probably 4th or 5th grade. But it was right after Michael Jackson had died. And for some reason, we were all completely terrified of Michael Jackson. Like, because I think it was his face, like what his face had become, and also just like
Dude, he was
there's-
scary.
Yeah, there's so many rumors about him
Yeah.
like touching children and stuff like that, being a rapist.
What was that
And-
real, by the way?
It's still not.
there
It
was
was just
that-
a rumor.
There was
There was
that.
a closet. Like his room, apparently a room found in his house where he just had tons of CP.
Shit.
But I don't know if that's
cheese
true.
pizza.
I
'Cause,
saw
like,
that in like a.
It was
a
kind of like
tabloid,
just
so-
this thing that he was labeled as, but no one really went into the specifics. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wasn't too sure. If
And there was that documentary. What was it? Dreamland or
I think it's
Wonderland,
still
something like that, where
and I was
it-
young, so I just, didn't pay attention.
Yeah, there is a semi-recent documentary about all of that, where some of the people who were victimized at the time have come out and spoken about things, and I haven't seen it, but I've heard a fair bit about like the sadness and regret that some of the parents had that they expressed in the documentary about allowing their kids to go spend time alone with Michael Jackson.
Really?
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah. So since we had this fear of Michael Jackson, we're playing hide and go seek in the dark, and for some reason we all thought that Michael Jackson was out in the garage hiding in the trunk of my dad's car, and so like there was one kid left to find, and we were all too terrified to go look in the garage, and he was actually hiding in the trunk, the one spot we were afraid to look, and so we were all too terrified to go look out there because we thought Michael Jackson was going to be out there and he was going to like rape us or something. Like, I don't know why.
I wonder if it's like what is it? Like a geographical location where certain areas people were, like Michael Jackson was like a horror icon. Because in my elementary, junior high, high school, like Michael Jackson, I never heard really anything about him being like a horror icon. Like if
horror or whore?
Horror.
Okay.
Sorry.
Because I kept hearing horror.
Sorry, I mumble a bit.
It's not my ex-girlfriend. Just kidding.
You don't mumble. Your voice is just very masculine.
Horror. Horror. But I always had a somewhat positive view of Michael Jackson growing up, just because
positive.
Actually, because I would sit in my grandma lived with us for a while, and I would go sit in her room, eat hard butterscotch candies, and watch Michael Jackson music videos with her.
I mean, yeah, my parents used to like pull those up too, or my ex stepmom, she would like watch those, and I mean, I like Michael Jackson's music and I don't know his music videos, but just as a kid, for some reason, I was terrified of him.
He was scary looking.
I was in a lot of
and the stories.
Yeah, there was just so many stories about him touching little boys,
and like that, everyone saw that video of him dangling that kid over the balcony.
I don't remember that at all.
You guys never saw
I
that?
remember I've never seen the video, but I remember the like iconic picture of him doing that.
Yeah.
I thought that was Chris Brown.
I mean, he could have done that too,
I
but I know.
Or maybe I'm thinking of somebody else. No,
it was like, I think it was a few years before he passed away. He was like, it was when he started becoming kind of like a nutcase. That's probably also why we got scared of him, because as we started getting older and like understanding the world, that's when he kind of became kind of a nutcase too. So it could have scared us. But that's when he was like dangling a child over the balcony, only for like a second. But still,
yeah, it was just a prank.
As soon as someone dangles a child,
It's just a joke.
Oh, just kidding.
Psych. Yeah, shake a baby. Just no, I'm just
That's
playing.
so funny, honestly, that like there's all these generations that just adore Michael Jackson and his music, and here are all these little kids just completely terrified of him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah, I don't know. I've never appreciated like older music for some reason. I know a lot of people do. Like they're like, oh, the '80s, or for me it starts like kind of just the '90s, and that's it. Anything older, maybe like Johnny Cash. There's a period like old I can appreciate, like '70s, like Johnny Cash, like some '60s, but '80s is a no-go for me for some reason.
Really?
And then early '90s, no.
for me, it just depends on the, like, it's just song to song.
What about like the Smashing Pumpkins?
No.
What? Okay, that's like my favorite.
I remember you were always really hyped about them, and it wasn't that I thought they were bad. I just
didn't care for them. I
Yeah.
get you. That's how I feel about anything produced between like 2000,
No, don't say it.
probably 2000
No.
and 2017
Dude,
maybe.
that's like the best
2016.
music.
that was really good.
Girl, let me love you, and I will love you.
I
Dude,
just
like-
never got into R&B.
Dude, I fucking loved R&B.
I
I don't listen to it much anymore, but like,
2000 to 2010 I felt was like the decade of R&B.
yeah, it was. That's when R&B was the most popular,
Yeah.
and I loved it. It was that, or like,
You were shuffling.
like Pink, or like,
that was so cringy.
you're hot and you're cold, you're yes and you're no. Like Katy Perry, all that. Like I was definitely into all the 2000s pop music, but
Yeah.
I was mainly into the R&B. I love Usher and Neo and like early Chris Brown. I love all that stuff.
Keaton brought it up for a second, and I feel like I just have to admit this. In like I think late elementary, junior high, I got into the very fringe shuffling music or dance scene.
Remember, like, what is it? What was that? The is it I'm sexy and I know it or something like that?
LMFAO.
Not necessarily
Yeah.
that.
But it was like
I
that
wasn't super
Party
into that.
rock.
Yeah, it wasn't you
tonight.
listening to that, but it was like during that time or something.
Yeah, it was around that area, and
yeah.
I got really into watching these music videos of people who had giant Jenko jeans. Do you know what those are?
I don't think so.
They're jeans that they're like
Hella
enormous bell bottom jeans.
poofy. Okay, yeah.
And
I
they're
know.
usually like,
Do you know
I
who
feel like
Oliver Tree is?
I don't.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, he wears those and
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
Oh yeah, but they're like, I feel like they're typically like goth looking, and they have chains on them all the time, and I feel so cringe knowing that I was ever into this, but I would watch those videos and try to replicate them. Like I would never record it, but I was just like, dude, this shuffling thing,
Dude, show
it's
me.
gonna take off. Yeah,
Dude, he got pretty good at it.
Yeah.
I was really good at shuffling.
Hey, there you go.
Um,
I'm not judging. I appreciate any form of dancing. Like, be willing to make a fool of
The
yourself.
only form of dancing I do not appreciate is my own.
That's the only kind I appreciate. No, I'm kidding.
Is
That's,
mine?
No, yeah.
It's mine.
I'll
And
know.
we made that cinnamon challenge.
Oh yeah. When
Like, what?
I wanted, I was getting really into like vlogging YouTube channels, and I wanted to start a vlogging channel while I was in 6th or 7th grade.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, Caden, this video is gonna go viral. Eat a spoonful of cinnamon with me, dude.
I remember wanting to do that at one point. Like, but my idea was more, I'm going to vlog my life and not change a single thing about it. So it'd almost be like, what's the movie with Jim Carrey?
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
I probably would have known if you wouldn't have asked.
Shoot, what is it?
Something. Oh, it's on the tip of my tongue.
The Harry Truman Show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not
Oh,
Harry.
Not Harry.
It's just the
The
Truman,
Truman
Show.
Show.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of. Isn't that the president, Harry Truman? I always
You
get
mean
that.
Harriet Tubman?
I'm pretty sure. Am I just
Well,
smooth brained, or is
Oh.
Harry Truman a president?
There's definitely not. Definitely not. I think there was like maybe a political person. Like, yeah, it's definitely not Harry Truman though. Was he?
Harry S. Truman.
Yep.
What the
Yep.
fuck? How did I not know that?
Oh!
Dude, that sounds so unfamiliar. Like, I swear I would have a rough understanding of the.
The 33rd president.
What the fuck?
I just remember reading a book about people going to school.
He looks scary.
He does. Yeah.
Like, Truman
He kinda
sounded
looks like
familiar,
He
Pence.
looks like a.
but like Harry
sure.
just sounded
Yeah.
wrong.
Huh.
But, anyways, my idea was just film my life exactly, and it would be like just people observing me.
Like the Harry Truman Show.
Yeah. Exactly.
That would be pretty cool, though. I mean, now it seems like a lot of people try to do that, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But at the time, it would have been really cool.
Yeah.
It would have been one of the first.
We were talking about this a while ago about how we were watching Borat and how he was doing essentially just these crazy pranks on people, and people's reactions were just flabbergasted.
Yeah.
Whereas
Oh, yeah,
nowadays, like whenever you like pull a prank in public,
Or, like,
people are just like dealing with it.
They didn't like
Like they know what it is.
they
They're like,
bought
this is
into
an
the-
internet thing.
they bought into the prank, or like they believed that it was real and that it wasn't a prank. Like they believed it was actually happening. Whereas nowadays people are too aware of things being pranks to where it's hard to.
Yeah.
Dude, and when
Real
something really
reactions.
happens to you, sometimes you're like, it takes you a second. You're like, is this really happening?
Yeah, I feel like that is in the zeitgeist nowadays. It's like if crazy things happen, like, is this a prank for a
Like-
second?
Even COVID, I didn't think it was like a prank, but like I was just like, with how much people are like exaggerating crap. Like
Yeah.
it's like I don't even know.
Yeah,
I don't even know. Like when it
Especially
first started
at the
coming
beginning.
around, I was like, I don't even know.
yeah. When there was all of the
Because
Like
it's
when-
so sudden. you
oh
know?
yeah, when everybody like, I feel like the first thing that I saw about coronavirus was people were making jokes about like drinking the beer Corona. They're like,
Yeah.
watch out, you better hurry and stock up on lime when Corona gets here.
Yeah.
And like,
And like 2 weeks or a week later, or not
then
even
it was
that,
in like Europe, in Italy.
Yeah.
And then
and people are like talking about how terrible it is, and we're like, oh dang. And then all of a sudden it hits the U.S. and we're just like, oh shit.
And it just goes crazier than any other country.
wait. No, it depends on your political position on how bad it is
Oh, right,
once it
right.
hit the U.S.
Right.
It was so funny though, because it was like, you know, there weren't very many cases in the U.S. and like it was like really like way down here, but the anxiety for it was way up here. But as time's gone on, it's like the anxiety's dropped, but like the cases have rose.
People are less stressed when we have.
I think that's the Cassandra complex
Is that?
at play a little bit. Like Cassandra complex is kind of the obsession with the world ending, and so like when people think the world is gonna end, like everyone gets excited or quote unquote excited or like wants to talk about it, and that's all anyone talks about. And like I feel like that's how it was.
It was.
With the toilet paper shortages.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I wasn't too worried about it. The only thing I was worried about was my sister, because I was like, you know, if this is what people are talking about, Callie having
if
these
it's
heart
if it's not like so exaggerated to like, I feel like certain people on the left might over exaggerate it to an extreme extent. People on the right under exaggerate it, and I feel like people, you know, on the right and left, and especially towards the center, kind of have a more reasonable view on how bad it is, and even in that reasonable view, like your sister would have been in a pretty tough spot.
I mean, and on top of that, like it was just kind of safe with what her condition is. It just seemed safe to just assume that it was bad.
Oh, for sure.
You know.
Yeah.
It just to help her.
Yeah.
Now it's kind of, you know, if she doesn't care because she went back to work and everything, then I was like, okay, I don't need to worry.
Yeah.
Honestly, it hasn't been on my mind. If anything, I kind of just want to get it.
I don't.
just so I don't have to deal with it.
Yeah.
Huh.
I'm not looking anything, but it's just like it kind of feels inevitable. Like not maybe this year, but just seems like from what I hear.
I've heard that you can still get it after getting it though.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Kind of like the flu.
Yeah, I guess.
Isn't? I thought viruses are just like a once.
Technically, but there's multiple strains of like specific viruses. So like the common cold or the normal flu that we have every year.
Yeah.
There's multiple strains of it. So like, I think technically you could get the flu twice in a year.
Really?
I could be wrong, but I'm I don't know about fairly certain. I'm pretty sure that's how it works.
You know what's really odd is Savannah in early January had really bad. She calls it strep, but she went to the hospital because it was really bad. And they tested her for, it was like multiple things, and they said, we don't know what it is, here's some antibiotics. And
I've heard a lot of people say that they think that they had it back in January, or know someone who could have had it back in January or February.
I think it's a conspiracy.
But
like that's I feel like people are drawing assumptions based off of like what we know now, or like they're
with
just
foresight.
correlating. Yeah, exactly. Like if Corona hadn't happened and that happened, they just like, oh, it's the flu. But since Corona happened, they're like, oh, it's Corona. Like,
yeah.
Like at my old job, one of the managers there, he was like the asshole boss that's in every movie, where he's just overly confident about everything. Like he was one of those guys that I think we had 2 cases of COVID in the US. He's like, I got sick a couple months ago, pretty sure I had it. And and it just like, what? And he was, what was it? At this point, we were like, generally like the globe was aware that it was like a lung centric like issue. And he's like, I didn't really even feel anything happen to my lungs, or like the way he described it was not at all the symptoms that go along with coronavirus.
Well, Grandpa had coronavirus, and he didn't feel anything in his lungs. He was actually vomiting.
Oh really?
There are so many different symptoms to coronavirus.
Yeah, he didn't describe any that I had heard of with COVID necessarily.
I don't know if that is necessarily valid
Maybe.
anti-argument to it, but
Yeah,
I know the one that seems to be.
like they're definitely
Everyone
more
says that they're
common symptoms.
really tired. That seems to be the most common one.
Mhm.
is
But
they're
like there
exhausted.
are a ton of different strains of COVID. So,
Yeah.
and
I
there are
know
a
that
bunch of
there's
different.
one that's like almost, pretty mild, and then there's one that's pretty severe.
Yeah,
I kind of
because it definitely is pretty common for people who have COVID to experience lung problems and stuff like
Mhm.
that. But I don't think it's universal.
Yeah,
The other thing is like it felt like it was like those people that went like I'm not gonna wear masks. They can't like force me. To me, it seemed like it was almost like a moral obligation I felt to wear a mask, not for myself but like for others. If I
Yeah.
had it, that was just like the feeling I had. I didn't think like that there should be like wrong or right, and I still don't think like the government should force me or whatever. But I definitely felt like it was my
Mhm.
duty to wear one when I went into, or to try to stay away from people.
What are you guys' opinions on should the government force people to wear masks? As I feel like probably I'm leaning towards yes. My natural inclination is towards
too.
yes.
I think if my idea on it is if like people were, I think it's a common courtesy issue. Like if people had the
What?
common courtesy, or I guess like the
Awareness,
not even just
the
common courtesy.
perspective.
Maybe I think it's a little. It's. I don't think it's quite more moral, but it's not as low as common courtesy. I feel like there's like almost a gap right there, where wearing a mask fits in, and I feel like if people had the common courtesy or almost the morality position of wearing a mask, and it like everybody was wearing a mask, then like
But I also,
obviously the mandate wouldn't a mandate of wearing masks wouldn't be necessary
but
at
I
all.
also think like some people just don't have the correct perspective because in the sense that they just don't have the correct knowledge, and so that's
Right.
why they're not wearing a mask rather than necessarily
Yeah.
it being a common courtesy thing, or
Yeah.
they're under a false impression.
Yeah, and
that
I
the
agree with
government's
that.
trying to control them.
Yeah.
And that's the only reason.
Mm-hmm. Well, I
the
think
original-
people can have
yeah.
that perspective as well. But
Or
I
that
think
it's not serious.
yeah, I think people can have a false perspective of it not being as bad as it is, and also have the perspective of the government's just trying to control us. But I think people can have the correct perspective, but then feel like the government is trying to control us is a more important issue than the common courtesy. Like,
Yeah. I see.
I don't know. I feel like
But
there's
then, yeah, I'm generally against government controlling you so that you have common courtesy. But I feel
Mhm.
like this goes beyond that. Like it's health reasons. Like it's literally people's lives at stake.
yeah.
And so for that reason, I feel like I'm more comfortable with government controlling versus like government controlling free speech or like
Mhm.
not allowing certain words. I think that's a different issue. But
I
Yeah.
actually kind of I questioned this in a philosophy forum in Reddit on like controversial laws and why we should follow them, and they were just stating like I can't remember how they responded, but it was like if the government says something, then we just kind of
well, I guess
Follow
technically
it.
isn't it even not even a law, but like a what's the word? A mandate? I don't think that's the right
yeah.
word. But I'm pretty sure it's not.
Legislation.
I don't think it's a law that you have to wear a mask, but
Oh no,
but
yeah,
rather
not.
it's like a like you know how when the yellow speed limit signs, those are like recommendations or whatever, like I don't know.
I think there might be a difference.
But because I understand you do need to have a mask to go into a restaurant or like businesses, but I figured that was
Mhm.
just their decision, and so they can make that decision.
Yeah.
But I don't think is there like an actual law as far as wearing masks?
I think it depends on the area you're in. I think I think right now in Utah, I'm pretty sure that it's mandatory in business.
Oh yeah,
places.
that's right. It is. I forgot.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Herbert came out and
Mm-hmm.
that's weird because there's so many places like sometimes
Utah
I work
County
at
got that now.
I
too.
work at that auto repair shop, and I have to go to various like car related places. And every single one of them, you don't have to wear a mask inside.
Really?
None of them care. Any of these
Oh,
car places.
Do they have signs though that say like mask mandatory, but they
No.
don't care?
They don't have the signs, and that's why I don't wear a mask.
The-
And the people inside aren't wearing masks, and then they don't have any signs either.
Yeah, I don't know like the rules on it or whatever, but because I've been to a few places where the people will be like, oh, you don't need to wear one, or they just don't say anything and no one's wearing one. And it seems to be just like, I mean, how like, I don't think there's any law enforcement going into places making sure.
True. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
too many businesses.
Yeah, for police to be stomping through every business.
All right, does
Yeah,
the store have a sign posted? All right, next one. All right, now
Yeah.
we're gonna do another 10 million or like 3 million buildings.
Yeah, logistically, it doesn't seem feasible.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I will say it does crack me up when I see someone driving and wearing a mask and they're like
Yeah,
by
that's something that
themselves.
confuses me
That
too.
is kinda funny.
Like I don't understand.
Yeah,
I see that
like-
all the time.
I'm not gonna give anybody shit for it, but
It's
it's
just
kind of
funny.
just funny.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's not like I'm like, oh, you idiot, but it just
Yeah,
makes
like-
me laugh.
Like, personally, I don't have any issue wearing, like, it doesn't bother me to wear a mask. Like, sometimes, like,
That's
I'll
what I
forget
don't
to
It
take
definitely
it
is
off.
non-preferable. Like I'd much rather not wear a mask, but
Not
Especially
for
when
me.
you
I just don't care.
my
Oh,
glasses
I really
fog
don't.
up. That's the only thing
like
that
Oh,
for
irritates
yeah.
me, I also like I'll get acne because I'm breathing and like there's too much
Oh,
moisture
really?
and like also it's just uncomfortable. Like it's hard. It's a little bit harder to breathe than normal.
I
and,
don't have to wear a mask.
like
at the
it's just
gyms.
100% non-preferable. I don't see how it would ever be preferable
Yeah.
or even neutral. Like how is it neutral to you? I feel like there is some.
I think I
bothering.
almost prefer it.
Why?
I don't know. I feel
In
like
the
there's
same
some
way-
sort of confidence that comes from it of people not seeing my face.
But you
Like,
can
I don't
see
think
that
I'm
like
like-
someone wearing long sleeves.
Wait, what?
Someone preferring to wear long sleeves
at all times.
Kind of.
because it like that covering themselves is more comfortable than having it open.
Yeah, I think so.
Or also the not other people not judging you because not judging your face because you have a mask so they can't really see your face, so kind of like a self-conscious thing. Or
I don't know. I don't think it's a self-conscious thing because I don't feel like I really have been all that self-aware of people like judging my face specifically. But I don't know. I feel like there's like, even with glasses, like maybe it's like the Nietzschean idea of wearing a mask, like how he grew out his mustache because he felt like that was his mask.
yeah, it
So-
allows you to people to perceive you in a certain light that may not actually reflect who you truly are.
Yeah,
Or, like-
and like ever since I've had glasses, like I've felt like I've had a different, like I've had a mask that I've had on, and then literally having a mask on.
Yeah.
I feel like that also contributes to.
So like similar to like
To it.
earrings or a nose piercing or dyeing your hair or like it's a distraction from like I guess it kind of like
I don't know about that necessarily. I feel like it's more. What is it? It's almost like the antithesis of like a nose piercing or earrings. Like it
yeah, I guess it wouldn't be
subtracts from your expression,
yeah,
but like
or it distracts. It distracts
Yeah.
from your face and brings attention elsewhere, or like distracts from who you actually are, like your natural being, and brings attention to something that's not natural.
yeah. Yeah, but I just find wearing a mask to be slightly more preferable, which
That's bizarre to me.
I understand that it's completely bizarre. Like I thought it was weird that I don't know, the more that I wear a mask, like the more I'm like, this is almost preferable. And like I was telling you about that lady at Chick-fil-A that when I went through this drive-through, she walked up to my car because they had such a long line that they were walking back through the cars to take orders. And so this girl walks up to my car to take my order, and as soon as she walks up, I roll down my window and I put on my mask, and she says, "Oh no, don't worry about it. You don't have to wear a mask." I'm like, "Oh, it's okay. I prefer it." And I see her look down, and she just mumbles like, "Retarded." And I was just like, "What?" And then she gave me so much attitude the rest of the time that she was giving me taking my order. It was super bizarre.
The heck?
Yeah, that's so weird.
Yeah, like it. I don't know. I feel like I talk extra loud and extra clearly when I have a mask on because like it
Maybe
kind
you
of
can hear
hinders.
yourself better. I don't know.
I don't know.
I feel like you're able to hear yourself worse because you're.
I know that
It's coming-
interferes with communication because you can't read people's lips, which I know is kind of part
And also,
of.
sound waves are like sound is waves that are getting interfered with, so obviously it would be quieter as well.
Yeah. So then I feel like it forces me to talk louder and more clearly, but because of the mask, it's like a normal volume. And I already mumble a lot, so
maybe
I think
I
it's.
see. Maybe it lowers like your. What would that be? I don't even know sound frequency or whatever. Whatever your the deep.
Encourages articulation.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
But that's not necessarily why I prefer it. Like, this isn't like about the.
Yeah.
These aren't really factors in why I prefer it.
Yeah. That's still so weird to me. I guess I understand. Your analogy or like the idea of the mask in general
Mm-hmm.
and how that can be appealing.
Well, that's about 2.5 hours. Shall we wrap it up?
Yeah.
I think we were talking about wrapping it up
Yeah.
almost an hour ago.
Yeah, and then we got sidetracked.
When you went to the bathroom, me and Brock were talking about wrapping it up, and then
then
you
I was
walked
like-
out, and we
You were
delved
like,
into
we
it.
should wait for Caden, and then I was like, oh, I guess I'll share my story right now while we wait for him, and then we just got sidetracked.
Yeah.
This has been fun though. Like
For
the
sure.
beginning was nice, and then I really enjoyed the end.
Yeah, I'm glad we ended up doing it.
Yeah.
Brock.
Dude, I was passed out when you came in. I was not something about me is when I within the first 10 minutes of waking up, I'm just not happy.
You
I do
seemed
not wanna
pretty
do
pissed off
anything.
that I knocked.
Dude,
your
I was
door.
so pissed. It just interrupted me, and it was startling, the pounding on the door when you're passed out, and I was like, fuck, all that.
What's going on? Yeah. All right. Well, cool. Episode 3 of Skeptic Minds with Colton,
Brock.
And Caden.
and yeah, this is it. Free will and a lot of other.
Quote.
Oh yeah, quote.
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 All right, so let's see, which one do I want to choose? Oh, this is kind of correlatable to some of our discussion earlier, but the surest way to corrupt a youth is to instruct them to hold in higher esteem those who think alike than those who think different. And that was a Nietzsche quote.
I like it.
Me too.
Bada boom, bada bing. Mr.
Episode
Worldwide
3.
is a step in the room because I'm a hustler, baby. All right. Thank you for listening to Skeptic Minds. We'll see you next week. 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 See you next week.